Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 216. 216, Duncan.
Wowzers.
I know. That's what happens when you put it on yourself and you don't need anyone to promote you. Doesn't matter if anyone's listening, you just keep doing it, you know.
I'm impressed.
Got Nate Hale in the garage. I'm Steve Crane. And our special guest tonight is Duncan Oughton. He is I'd say, fairly longtime friend of mine, and he just recently moved back to the area. We'll get to know Duncan a little bit more here as we get into the show. But Duncan, thank you very much for being here. You brought a nice bottle with you. We love those types of guests that bring whiskey, so I appreciate it. We're drinking the Peerless Rye that you brought with us. Anytime,
mate. It's great to see you, and it's an honor to be invited on to the 216th show.
I feel like an honor's a little strong, but yeah, okay.
Well, I was hoping for the top 100, but hey, I'll take 216.
So before we dive into it too much, I do want to thank you guys out there that support us through patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. You guys are amazing. That has been great support. There are 3 different tiers you guys can sign up for. Also Venmo at Bourbon and BS. If you can't make it to the garage, you want to sponsor with a bottle, you can just do that through Venmo, and we will buy to the best of our ability anything that you'd like so that we can review it and enjoy it. But even better, if you guys are in the area, you are welcome at the garage within reason. You need to be, gone through a background check and everything like that. But hey, Tyler. Also, Tinderbox at Easton. We've got the La Gloria Cubana Criollo de Oro tonight. This is a mouthful. I know, Shannon. I'm sorry. But this is going to be a limited edition one. So thank you, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. This is available while supplies last there. And if you guys go in there between now and the next podcast, we'll do 15% off of that cigar as well. So comes in around, well, I'll tell you during the show. Also, Altadis USA, thank you very much, Josh Bentley and everyone else at Altadis. Thank you for the continued sponsorship. Tonight, the second cigar from them is going to be the Romeo y Julieta, Connecticut, Nicaragua. We've smoked it before on the show. Made by Placencia, which is a fantastic blend, mild to medium. Definitely check that out as well. And then Via Cigar Company, that's going to be the gold and silver available as well. So thank you very much, Via Cigar Company, for the support. And if you like some of the shirts like I have on and Nate has on with some BS Cigar, you can tell them where they can find what you're wearing. But as far as the swag for the show, buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. We're wearing the 3/4 sleeves, great for the spring, as we have finally here arriving in Columbus, Ohio. There's also new colors, black with red sleeves, black with blue sleeves are now available as well. So check that out if you guys are interested. That's it, man.
Till it's springtime, you need to cut the grass.
Yeah, I know.
I started already.
All right. No one likes to show off.
I mean, to be fair, you should cut your grass, mate.
I know that.
I've seen some gifts on the way in. I don't know if I can talk about it on here.
No, I didn't even know about it. What'd you find? Did anyone else see this in the grass?
Did you guys see something in the grass?
What did you see in the grass?
Oh, well, that's a lot better than what I saw.
Is it? Sean's going out and taking a look, right? I think it's.
Watch out for the landmine.
Probably near my.
I think you've seen it. Yeah, it's Steve's.
Apparently there's a tampon in my front lawn. So if anyone,
I'd say mowing is essential.
It wasn't from me, but I'm just saying if it's, if you're on Rangel Place and it's
you're missing a tampon,
or if you need one.
I'm surprised it wasn't hiding in the bushes.
I thought it was a funny gesture from you, like a welcoming gift. I was like, oh yeah, okay, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks.
You're a real I still remember I was taking a walk while we're on side tangent. I was walking by Sean's house, who lives in the back of the neighborhood. This is probably almost a year ago, and there was a Magnum wrapper on the sidewalk right in front of your house. Yeah. Across the street, though. Do you know anything about that?
Wind blew it over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Real classy start, everyone, as I expect with Duncan in the garage.
Yeah, it's all right.
That's all right. That's all right. All right. Well, let's dive into Peerless. We did Peerless Double Oak. You said episode, what was it, Nate?
204.
204. We're on 216. That was when Sean Wilkinson brought back from a work retreat, I believe, Peerless Double Oak, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. And so this is the Peerless Straight Rye?
Small batch rye.
Small batch rye.
This is the only Peerless product currently available in the state of Ohio.
The straight bourbon's not?
No. When I looked up on OHLQ, just the small batch rye.
Okay.
which they also do, like you said, they do a bourbon. They also do single barrel rye and bourbon, and then they do a double oak as well. That Sean was very gracious. Didn't cost him anything, so he didn't mind bringing it on and killing it.
Yep.
So you're telling me they're quite hard to get, so I should take that back before we finish it.
This isn't hard to get.
Okay.
This is the only what you brought is the one that's available in Ohio, and it's pretty readily available.
Good.
But it's more recently. It's in the last year or so that the Peerless has been available in Ohio.
Yeah, 2021 is when it came.
So I don't know, Duncan, and some of the viewers out there may not know. In the state of Ohio, it is a state-run liquor agency. So you have to basically work through the state to get it into the OHLQ, Ohio Liquor Department, and then they will then allocate it throughout the different state liquor agencies. So they order and they get what they can with all this stuff. Some stuff's easier to get, but Peerless was not available up until recently as far as in the state of Ohio.
Makes a lot of sense because Chad Marshall lives out in Indiana, and he's like, I know you can get Wellers out there. Get me whatever Wellers you find, grab it for me.
Here in Ohio?
When I was in D.C.
Oh, when you're in D.C., yeah.
Or when I was in Ohio as well. So I went to about 5 stores, and eventually I was like, this is really hard to get. He's like, just keep asking. I asked one store, and they looked at me like I was an idiot, and I called him that day. I was like, Chad, I'm done looking at this. They're like, good luck.
Basically. If I'm around, maybe. Like tonight I was at the liquor store, and the guy actually listens to the podcast, and so he asked, like, hey, what are you drinking tonight? So anyways, there was a lady ahead of me, and he had just walked to the back, came up front, and was selling a Buffalo Trace, which is nothing crazy special, but it's a good solid bottle for mid-20s, and it's super hard to find.
So hard to get, yeah.
So I literally like, do you have any more? He's like, yeah, hang on a second. He went to the back and got another bottle. I'm like, that's great, man.
Nice.
Hey, nice.
Yeah. So
shout out.
I know.
Shout out to the name's escaping me, but he's an awesome dude at the Kroger up here on Sunbury. And every week he's like, hey, what are you drinking? I work till 10, but I'm sure I'll get the alert every time you go on. And if if it's slow in here, I'll click it on and everything like that. So shout out to you for that bottle of Buffalo Trace. You are awesome.
I'll stop in and see if they've got any more behind the counter.
You might as well ask, right? Might as well ask. So what else do we know about Peerless here? I've got the website. The website has it's very expansive.
Yeah, like
the whole history of the family.
Yeah,
and where they're at here. It's so if you guys go to KentuckyPeerless.com, there's a YouTube video. There's a whole origin story here, which is fantastic.
You can go into the story again because it has been a few months. The two things that I remember about them that I really like about their story. One, they were one of only 5 distilleries that were able to keep production during Prohibition. They were one of 5 distilleries that got the medicinal license to be able to keep producing spirits.
Wow.
The other one is when they moved to where they're at now, they were able to keep their distiller number. So like each distillery in Kentucky is issued a number.
It's a distilled spirits plant number.
Yes.
DSP.
So nowadays, if there's a new distillery that wants to open up in Kentucky, that DSP is going to be in the 20,000s.
Yeah.
They still have their original number, which is 50.
I think it says it right there on the bottle, DSP-KY-50.
Yeah, it says it on the bottom of the back label.
Yeah. So basically, they started in 1889. To your point, they were talking, during Prohibition, they had the medicinal rights to do that, along with a handful of others, like you mentioned. And now 5 generations have been connected to the distillery. But now, obviously, they've got a state-of-the-art facility. They've got, I don't know the square footage here. They've got 6 fermentation tanks, a 3,800-gallon beer well, and one-of-a-kind 26-foot continuous copper still. The 2,500-gallon Peerless cooker. I mean, that's just a gigantic operation for being a smaller distillery.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got, it's really kind of a cool story here.
Yeah, they're not one of the big boys. They're not a part of a conglomerate. They're their own brand.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
which is nice to see, with so many smaller brands that have been bought up over the last couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's nice to see one that's doing really well, makes a great product, and they're still a standalone on their own company.
What do you think of this, Duncan? I mean, you said you've had this before. This was originally, the first time you had it was a gift from
my wife.
Your wife?
Yeah, my wife got me a gift. I since bought a bottle, and actually her dad gave me a gift of a bottle as well. So I think, obviously, when your wife gives it to you as a gift, the first thing you say is, wow, this is awesome.
If you're
when you
smart,
taste it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're
So,
smart.
no, but it is. I like it. For me, it's a great one to have with a cigar or
Mhm.
just sip on slowly. It's not something that I'm gonna be like smashing back. Well, we'll see what happens tonight.
Maybe
but,
tonight will be a little different.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make exceptions for friends.
It's for entertainment value
Yeah.
at times, is what we say. Research purposes also.
Perfect. But no, it's to me, it's nice. It's smooth. It's got a bite. I like it.
Yeah.
I've got no issues with it.
Do you we were talking a little bit before we went live. Do you normally drink ryes?
I do not. So for me,
Is that just
going
going
outside-
preference or just
yeah, I think it is. I mean, I do. You know, I'm not really that sweet, so it's better for me to have something what I would consider a little sweeter. Than
You're
this.
saying you as a person aren't that
me,
sweet?
me as a person.
I agree.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to
I'm
agree with you.
an honest man. So I like a little sweeter than you know what I would say this is.
Mhm.
Again, probably same thing in the scotches, right? When I have a scotch, you know, if I have one of those very peaty scotches, it's really for sitting there sipping on
Mhm.
late at night with a cigar, maybe, but not to sit there and just sip away.
Yeah,
I'm
gotcha.
the same way with the peaty scotches.
Yeah.
I need to have a cigar. Otherwise, like it just like kind of tightens up and I'm not a big fan.
I'm not a big fan of the Islas.
Yeah.
You know, that heavy peat content. Yeah. The first bottle my wife ever bought for me is while we were dating. We'd only been dating for like a couple months. She bought me a real peaty scotch. And I was like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. But I went ahead and drank it and thanked her for it, obviously. The next year she wanted to make up. And so she bought me like Macallan 18 to make up for it. And I was like, that was a bit, you swung too much the other direction. Like, really good bottle, but you didn't need to go that far to compensate for last year.
She just can't win with you, can she?
Oh, yes, she can. She has. You know that.
Sounds like a hard man to please.
I know, right?
No.
God.
Yeah, this
I'm
one's
not.
not my cup of tea, but geez, you had to spend that much on this. Like, Jesus.
Well, because at the time when
Russian
I was
judge.
at the time when I was more of a Scotch drinker than I was a bourbon drinker, like for what she paid for that bottle, like my favorite bottle of Scotch at that time, she could have bought 3 of them.
What was your favorite at the time?
I'll
bite.
Probably Glenlivet at the time.
Glenlivet what?
Just the base
12?
Glenlivet 12.
It's good. I like Glen. Yeah. Yeah. It's all right. It's all right. So what do you think of this, Nate?
Yeah, how about you guys, the experts?
Yeah,
Nate,
experts.
come on.
So I actually
Doing your own podcast does not make you an expert.
I-
It just means you drink a lot.
Yeah, we-
216 nights of drinking at least.
At least lie to me on this one.
And then there's a lot of research in between those.
There is.
No, so when I first saw this bottle, because I'd heard so many great things about Peerless. So when I first saw this and available in Ohio last year, I went ahead and picked up a bottle. Thankfully, my wife didn't yell at me because in the state of Ohio, this is a $90 bottle. So not the cheapest thing. But people that know me know I really enjoy a good rye, and I do like this bottle. It's actually a sweeter rye than some of the other ones that I've had.
Mhm.
And it doesn't taste like what the proof says it is. I think it's a lot smoother than what the proof tells you on this one.
What is the proof on this?
111.3.
So it's not a light proof
No.
by any means. Trying to pull up here.
It is. I mean, I agree with you on the smoothness. I do like that. There's been ryes I've had that I'm just like, I don't like rye. Done. But then you realize they're all the same, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, this has this nice kind of caramel sweetness up front, and then it does have that traditional rye spice on the back. But being at 111 proof, it doesn't really have that burn or hug in your chest at all.
I get a little bit
on.
on the back, like in the throat. I get
Yeah.
a little bit of that heat, but more of like a spice. Like, it's not as much of like you're saying. It's not that like feel it going
That
down.
alcohol burn. Where you're
Yeah,
like,
it's more just a flavor spice,
Mhm.
if you will.
I get it top of the mouth kind of.
Yep.
Like that heat up there.
Mhm.
More than anything.
Mhm. Do you know what the mash bill is? I'm trying to see. They don't really say it on the website.
Well, it's a
You
rye.
said straight or small batch?
This is the small batch. They have a small batch and a single barrel.
Let me look at the front. What's it say?
This is small batch.
All right.
Yeah, this, like I said, this is the only one available in Ohio right now. So my guess is from when I looked at this when I bought a bottle of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's a 95% rye mash bill. I'm going to guess. That's a guess. I'm not. We can look it up later, but yeah, I'd assume this is a straight rye that they're doing.
I mean, I really like it. I think there is a little bit of what did you say up front?
It's got a little caramel sweetness up front on it. Like it's
a little maple.
It's this very nice, thick, oily texture and viscosity to it, which again, with what we've had a lot in the past, like we get a lot of that with something that's this type of proof and higher. Like you expect it to be a little oilier and kind of coat your palate a little bit. We learned that a little bit more when you and I went to Louisville and did the Old Forester tour.
Yep.
The higher proofs are going to have a lot more flavor, a lot richer, and they're going to coat your palate because they're not watered down.
Yeah. Just seeing if there is here. Mash bill's undisclosed, minimum 51%. So yeah, it's undisclosed.
Why do they do that?
Keep the mystery.
Various reasons. Sometimes I think it's, to keep the mystery. They do in the cigar world too sometimes when they just maybe list regions as opposed to seed strands and, what I mean, the varieties there. But I also think sometimes it's I don't want to say to necessarily modify the recipe, but if you undisclose, the percentages, you don't have to necessarily redo it, especially at a smaller distillery like this. They could try to put out the same label. They're trying to reproduce it the best they can between that, but they might have, if it is a small batch, that's not necessarily a single barrel, so that they can actually have some varieties to mix together when they're doing that to try to produce the best they can as far as reproduce what's been doing well for them.
And if you notice, so on that front,
so tweak the ingredient,
tweak
the mash bill. Yeah.
So like on the front label, the proof, the percentage, and then the other code that they put on that label, like it's put on like with a typewriter. So like they have the basic label, and then anytime they do change the batch, like what you're talking about, like they just manually typewriter that onto the label.
Oh yeah, I do see that.
So it's not like some of the other brands where they know they're going to produce the exact
amount.
Yeah, they're not going to produce the exact same proof every single time. So rather than trying to do that, they just leave it blank, and then they'll just have it typed up when they go to bottle.
So this is a unique batch in essence.
Well, they all are, aren't they?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, small batches they can taste different, not as much as single barrels typically.
Yeah,
because those are obviously smaller, and they can have different variety there.
Yeah.
I do like this. I've been impressed with everything from Peerless at this point in my experience with the distillery. Everything. We've had some friends that have brought up like these like the real like single barrels, the single barrel rye. They've had some like really small projects, and everything I've had, the double oak that Sean brought to the garage. I mean, everything is just so flavorful, and I mean, I don't want to say balanced, but I've not had any that I'm just like that's a miss.
So
that's a miss.
How was the double oak? Just out of curiosity, I'm going to ask a lot of questions because this is a learning experience for me too.
So
that's great.
So like the double oak, I believe what I said was smoked candied bacon.
Yeah.
Like,
do you have any more?
They're gone.
Did someone say candied bacon?
Yeah.
So one of the customers at the tinderbox is a huge fan of Peerless, and he's usually got a bottle in his locker, and every time he pours it, like he'll look at me and like he'll offer me a pour, and he's like, "Does that not taste like smoked meat or something, or candy bacon or something like that?" It's just the flavor he really loves about their distillery.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I'd say the Peerless Rye too. I mean, I was actually talking to someone in the liquor store tonight because he was asking about the was it IW Harper's 18? Is it 15?
The new 15.
Yeah, he was asking about that in the case. I was talking about we had that, and then we were talking about the Basil Hayden Dark Rye. We were talking about a couple of things.
Basil Hayden.
Yeah,
I'm story-wise big fan. You keep going.
Well, that was
if
we didn't have this, I've got that, so we can crack that maybe in the second part.
Do the dark rye.
Have you had the dark rye?
I haven't had the dark rye. No, just the regular Basil Hayden.
That's a dark rye. It's going to be their Kentucky straight rye. It's going to be Canadian straight rye, and
from Alberta.
Yeah, and then port
from California.
Quite unique. So we can always crack that if you're a big Basil Hayden fan.
Well, there's a story behind it. It's not like I tried Basil Hayden and I'm like, wow, it was amazing.
All right.
I mean, it was really
Story
good.
time.
But
That's that's fine.
we're in the wrong segment.
That's okay.
I like this.
All right. Now
Gosh.
people are gonna wonder. I'm gonna get comments.
No. So I was sitting with a couple of buddies. And we were in the Georgetown Tobacco, the cigar shop right down on M Street. And we'd meant to, it was me, the guy I work with, one of my best friends, and a guy had come down from Toronto that we knew from up there. And we were meant to meet the girls out for dinner. So they went home to get ready. And we were like, well, we're ready. We'll stop and have a cigar. So we thought, well, his name's Steve, actually. It was Steve's birthday.
I like him already.
So he's an English guy living in Toronto. Great guy. He's like, let's stop at the liquor store. It's my birthday. Let's have a few drinks before we go. Yeah. He's like, I love Basil Hayden. Just straight, great to drink. Maybe one rock. Awesome. So we grab this bottle, go into the cigar store, light up. There's a bunch of people sitting around, and then they kind of clear out, and there's just one old guy left sitting over there. So we scooch down, offer him a drink, as you do. We've got 2 New Zealanders and an Englishman. We're like, let's talk to this old guy. What's his deal?
What's not to like?
Turns out his name's Joe Allen. He's been to space numerous times, and he's on Armageddon, and he's like the guy that they use to kind of recreate space as realistically as possible because he'd been there a bunch of times. Just hanging out, smoking a cigar. His wife had gone a little senile, so some mornings she remembered him.
Dementia.
So, dementia. Some mornings she remembered him. Some mornings she didn't. And I think that was his release to pop down to Georgetown Tobacco, have a cigar. And I mean, look, the guy's was amazing, telling great stories. It was, and kind of the Basil Hayden thing has a story with it.
You have identity with that experience.
Massive identity with Basil Hayden. So it's like something I always remember when I see a bottle. I'm like, I should get that.
I like that. Yeah, no, memories for sure. It's very strong with that. Did you ever actually fact check him, or was he just an old guy?
No, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the guys stayed in touch with him for a while.
Nice.
Steve got his number.
Nice.
And they stayed in touch. I mean, to be fair to the guy, I think he must have had a catheter or something. We had a little leakage.
I mean, don't have to throw the guy under the bus.
No,
he's such a majestic story.
No, but the thing was, he just kept on going. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, who am I to argue? The guy's been to space how many times? Like, dude, if you do it right now, I'm leaving. I'm not coming back.
If I go to space, or if
you go to space, you're not coming back.
All right. Either way.
No, it was just
we're in the garage.
Just a great human being.
That's very cool.
Very cool story. Very cool guy with great stories himself, and my attachment to Basil Hayden. Sorry to go off track.
That tends to happen, especially in part 2 on this show, but it's always good. Always good conversation. I'm going to take a little bit more of that if I could as we get into the cigar here. Check on the old time here. We're doing pretty good. Got people just talking about accents now on the comment feed.
Yeah.
Who's got an accent?
Well, one of our listeners, Ray, he currently lives in Vietnam, but he's originally from England. And so I wasn't going to sit there and type out because he's asking he's like, is that an Australian accent I hear? And I'm like,
hang on, don't.
I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking close enough. No, I know you. No,
can I lose my shit?
On him, not Ray.
Oh, not on Ray.
There, no, I'll put up the comment here. You can see that New Zealanders are cool. Australians are just uncouth.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, Ray. So Ray's a Brit. So yes. When he heard your accent, he's like, "Oh, what?" Like his ears perked up a little bit.
Well, I get called Australian, English, and New Zealand occasionally.
Yeah.
So. But my accent's so dumbed down now. I'll go back home and they're like, God, you sound American.
You're like,
no, I don't. Here and they're like, no, not.
No, you have to take someone from either the deep south or the Midwest and go, no, listen to these people talk and tell me I sound American.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll be sitting there going, what the fuck?
Yeah, just down on the beach in Alabama, and I was struggling to understand a few people.
A few.
Those are long conversations about nothing at that point. So the Gloria Cubana Criollo de Oro Toro is what we were smoking. This is a limited release. I was trying to figure out here, and I'm trying to scan again how many they did. There you go. So there's 2 sizes with a combined release of 3,100 boxes between them. And I believe they're 20-count boxes. Yes, they are 20-count boxes to Toro and then Churchill. This is going to be a 5 3/4 by 54. And the Criollo de Oro is interesting because it's a hybrid wrapper. That's what the name comes from. Criollo is a seed of tobacco. So it is a variety of seed. And that is very common. This is actually going to be a Criollo de Oro, which is going to be combined with a Palo de Oro seed, which is the de Oro part. Shannon, are you listening? Because you thought it was too much. Do you have your headphones on? Jesus. Can't even say it. And I'm trying to explain it. Okay, all right. You're excused.
He's watching TikTok.
Pour him some Peerless. That'll wake him up. Warm him up, wake him up, do something.
Do you want some there, Tyler? You know where the glasses are, right? Just don't wake up Tony too much, all right? But yeah, Palo de Oro at one point was like a pretty hyped up tobacco. It was one that was grown in Cuba, to my knowledge, for a long time. And then that was a big part of the blue mold issues they were having. So they kind of cut that out. So you hear the name quite a bit, but it's not necessarily as well known and used, especially as wrapper leaves. So, but yeah, so this is something that is a unique blend. Again, a short run or a limited edition. This is going to be that Criollo de Oro from Dominican. The wrapper leaf is where it's grown, the hybrid. And then you're going to have a Connecticut broadleaf U.S. grown binder, and then Nicaraguan and Honduran filler. So there's tobaccos from all over, some unique tobaccos, very, interesting blend. And it's something that I don't know. I'll tell you how it's sold for us, and I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this cigar. Nate, go ahead.
So this is actually the second one I've smoked before. My biggest drawback on this cigar is every single time it is packed so tight that it's very, very difficult to draw through.
Well, you say every single time after you say this is the second time smoking it.
Yes.
So
I was 2 times.
Well,
one out of one for sure, 100%.
No, I always want to give a cigar at least 2 tries.
And how is this one?
Same. Like
I
had to draw poke this. I had to draw poke this before I lit it, and like I even cut down a little further than the two of you did. But like you can see by looking at the head of mine.
He draw poked mine as well.
Wait, the cigar?
We are talking cigars, yes.
Yes. No, I did it a few times, and like it's still been rather difficult to pull through. And
Shannon's shaking his head. I don't have an issue with it.
I've had other cigars with far more issue than this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're having tough draw.
yeah,
I got a draw poke, so
yeah.
I'm cheating. Maybe he just always gives you the bum cigar. No.
It wouldn't be the first time that No, it wouldn't be the first time that we've had cigars on the podcast that we just happened to get a bad one and they were packed too tight and didn't draw worth a damn.
That is true. Can you turn his mic on?
So for me, I did the punch on it. I didn't bring my cutter, so I just punched it, and it's drawn beautiful. I thought big puffs of smoke, everything.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You will have some issues with it, but I mean, it could be where they're making it. Sometimes you'll have that with any cigar. Obviously, I mean, it can be a $3 cigar, or it can be a $20, $30 cigar. Yeah. It will happen. It is, as Tyler said in the audience, is a handmade product, so you're going to have those issues. But to Nate's point, if he's had, if you give a cigar blend or even just a brand, you're like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Well, you smoked, say this is the only La Gloria Cubana that you smoked, and you bought one. You're like, oh, I'll give it. I bought 2, so I'm going to smoke the other one, and they're both plugged. You're going to be very hesitant to go back to that blend, especially. But if you might be very hesitant to go back to that brand in general, and just say like, those are the types of customers or the smokers that are going to say, yeah, I'm just not a big fan of La Gloria Cubana. Well, why not? Well, construction issues. Well, what have you tried? You try to like really do it, but you can't twist the arm to be like, because it's, again, you're spending your own money on this typically, that you want to have a good smoking experience. So if you've had bad smoking experiences, flavor aside, everything else aside, but if it's blowing up, if you can't draw through it, I think blowing up is not as bad as not being able to draw through a cigar.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst.
So
you're sitting there like you're supposed to enjoy it, relax, and all you're doing is, you're just really sucking on it and just like, I cannot break this up. Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's just at that point, I'm done with it. I'm
So-
not gonna.
So I've not-
like that not that long ago, and I was just like, God,
It's not enjoyable.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So I haven't had that issue with like the Series R's, the Spanish Press, the Medio Tiempo
Yeah.
that we had from La Gloria. So like any of their other lines that I've smoked, I haven't had that issue. It's only been this blend
Mhm.
that I've had that issue with from that company.
Okay. Well, at least it's for the listeners that, you're not just saying that all their brand is tough to smoke. I mean,
No.
this is coming from General Cigars, now Forged is their division that runs the Gloria Cubana line. But yeah, I mean, this is from the parent company. I mean, Forged, and then STG, which is Scandinavian Tobacco Group, but that's General Cigars. So I mean, they've kind of broken apart their portfolio to give more attention to the lines as separate efforts. But what do you think, Duncan?
Really enjoying it, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not I wouldn't say it's an easy draw for me personally, but it's not a really tough draw. It's kind of somewhere in the middle compared to cigars I've had. But the flavor, I'm actually really enjoying it with the drink.
Yeah.
I think it's going quite well together, and I assume you had a little matchy there, or no?
This one, I mean, we were talking today about the Peerless Rye. I was looking at something that I could feature, not only something we haven't featured before, but something that, as far as our sponsor, Tinderbox at Easton, something that, so that's what I was saying earlier. They've moved through some of the product that we had gotten, but honestly, it's just kind of not a huge hype around it.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why, personally, this is, my theory is that one of the reasons why Forge did this with that line is that they wanted to try to have a new offering and limited edition in the whiskey world as well as the cigar world. I mean, that is an effort to kind of get some hype. I'm looking up some of the notes from a great site, halfwheel.com, one of my favorite ones to go to, because they are great with their press releases. They're great with their info on the blends and companies and the happenings that are going on. But I mean, doing a limited run on something like what was this? All right, calm down. You want the microphone? Who are you with? All right.
Give it to him.
Make it happen. Okay. Good thing he's not mic'd. But no, I think that, doing a limited run like that for a brand that I am of the opinion, La Gloria Cubana, the Series R, has basically carried that namesake as far as it's gone, and doing things like these efforts like limited editions, and like you mentioned, the Spanish press, Nate, and there's some other ones out there that Series R, at least from my vantage point, has been the tried and true. That is what keeps La Gloria Cubana's name out there as a brand under the umbrella of now Forged. This one I've enjoyed. This is not, and we'll talk about that, Ray. I see some comments here. We'll talk about the cigar here, the draw poking. But I like this cigar, medium bodied. It's good flavors. I got a little bit of a spice in the retro hail, a little cedar. I mean, what do you think, Nate? I mean, you're better at the notes than I am, but that's kind of what I'm getting. There's a little woodiness to it. I mean, it's a pleasant flavor. There's no real outstanding blow me away type of experience here.
No, it's more of the flavors that are there are a little bit more delicate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of that dry woodiness, like that cedar type of woodiness to it. Very earthy. Doesn't have like that thick leathery note or anything like that. There's really no sweetness to it. But you're right about medium body. I do enjoy Criollo tobacco. So it kind of has that flavor that I like about Criollo. I think for me personally, with this cigar, with having the draw issues that I'm having to pull on it as often and as hard as I have to, it's kind of making that flavor come across a little burnt.
Okay.
Which I know the cigar doesn't normally taste like that, but because I have that draw issue, it's kind of hindering the flavor a little bit.
So I'd have to run back the tape, but I don't think that normally during a day, if I'm working in the shop, I have to relight a lot, and that does affect the flavor profile when it goes out. You have to relight it. I get a little bit of spice, and as I'm talking, I'm about to sneeze because there is a little bit of spice on this. I don't know, Shannon, if you're getting on the retro hail or not. No,
just a bite,
just enough, enough. But I have not had to relight this at all or very little, and I am not having the construction issues that you guys were referring to as far as being a little bit plugged and a tough draw. Mine and Shannon's the same, so we lucked out with that. So again, there's take that for what it's worth based on the 4 cigars we have in the garage right now. But with that being said, I don't have that kind of like the bitterness. I don't have any of that stuff because mine has been just kind of, you can look at the table here, the burn line on mine.
So mine's been running on one
Yours is
side.
running, his is running a little bit.
Yeah, I've had to touch mine up a few times.
I haven't touched mine. I haven't relit it, and it's drawing pretty good. It's smoking.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at that.
Yours
is clean.
Yeah, yours is doing just fine.
Yeah.
Mine
I didn't really cut too deep. I mean, I cut.
It's like going down the line. His is perfect. Mine's semi, and yours is.
I can tell on mine
it should be.
I can tell on mine when I squeeze it, like it does feel the side that's
softness.
Yeah, the side that's running, it feels a little softer on that side, and we've talked about that before. Sometimes when they roll that filler tobacco, it may not necessarily settle evenly, and one side might be packed a little tighter, one side might be a little looser, and that looser side's going to burn a little quicker.
Yeah, and it will cause some plugging issues because now the filler, and to my knowledge, it's being now crimped a little bit too because it has moved a bit. When there's that give in there, it's not as like the way that they bunched it any longer because there's been a lot of movement there, and therefore you're going to have some of those air passages getting closed off a bit.
Mm-hmm. I get your you said earthy. I get like it tastes a little, I don't know, not woody but I do get that. When you said that word, I was like, huh. Which is I think why I enjoy having a cigar like this with a drink like this. It matches for me personally.
I think it's pairing very nicely.
I think everyone's palate's a little different too, I
think the earthiness of this cigar kind of goes well with the sweetness and spice that we get from the whiskey because there's really no sweetness to this cigar whatsoever.
No,
and there's only that little bit of spice through the nose. So like these aren't ones where they're battling each other. Like the flavors that this cigar doesn't have, this whiskey has.
Yeah,
and vice versa. So,
Shannon,
you're still hot. The mic. Sorry.
Thanks.
Probably been hearing everything.
Appreciate you on that one.
Good.
So would this be considered lower on the leaf since it's got more earthier tone to it?
I don't know of any correlation between earthiness and where it's at on the plant as far as being the lower primings versus the higher primings. You'll get a little bit more bitterness if you have too much Ligero, which I don't think this has. I think that's more of certain tobaccos that might be used that might be able to bring that out, the earthiness.
Gotcha.
Give that to Tyler, will you? Act like you've been here before.
Just talking to himself.
It could be it could be a number of things inside the blend that can lead it to have an earthy profile. I mean, it could be the specific filler tobaccos, the Connecticut broadleaf binder that I read that it has. It could be a lot of different things. So that plus it's got the hybrid wrapper. So I mean,
the hybrid wrapper.
That's very interesting. The hybrid wrapper being, especially from the Dominican Republic, is very, very interesting. I'll have to grab one maybe sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Cameroon is one that I think Cameroon wrapper and the way they blend that with a lot of times with Dominican tobacco. I mean, that I think gives a little bit of earthiness to it as well from my experience.
Yeah.
But to Tyler's point, Tyler Jones, who's been on the podcast before with Espinosa Cigars, he's stopped by the garage. He's graced us with his presence. See if we can get him talking more after a couple more drinks. We'll see. But, no, I think that the flavor profile, to Duncan's point too, everyone's got a different palate.
Yes.
So I mean, sometimes when I hear earthy, it's a drier experience. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's almost like that, in a sense, dirty. Like you know what I mean? It's kind of got that like clean but bitter kind of a finish to it, and I don't get that as much with this. So I wouldn't describe it as much earthy, but maybe that's because also I'm drinking this rye with it. Because you mentioned the spice, it kind of hands off the spice, but then you get the sweetness a little bit from the rye from Peerless, and this one doesn't have that. I get a little bit of the spice from that, and I think they're complementing each other pretty well.
I'm to be honest with you, mate. How much are these a stick?
So they're going to be around $11, give or take, where you're located.
100%.
You'd go again.
I'd go again.
There you go.
I'm enjoying it.
Good.
I really am.
Ray Cheshire had a comment. I'm going to blow up the screen here for you guys. He was talking about the draw poking because you guys were mentioning the draw poking. So those that don't know what that is, basically once you cut a cigar, there are tools, which is more or less you can't even see it on screen probably, but basically it is a fairly thin, not super thin, but fairly thin. It's got a point at the end, and then there's some that have a little bit of a spiral to it. A lot of them won't. Basically, you got to be careful if you don't have a guide with the draw poker, so you don't go through the wrapper leaf. But this is something that you can kind of put through the head of the cigar once you cut it, and you push down, along the cigar in the middle of it, and that is supposed to hopefully create an air passage where it may not be for whatever reason. Nate did it before. He was checking the dry draw or the
cold draw.
And that's something that you can do even if you've already started smoking and it starts plugging up on you. And that was hope. It's like a way to save the cigar without just being like, I'm done with this. I've had cigars though where I've used a draw poker in several areas around the length of the cigar, and it just still won't draw. That's when I give up. Yeah, but that's very rare.
Smoking a cigar is supposed to be enjoyable and relaxing. And if you're sitting there like having to constantly stay on top of it and chief on it and relight it a bunch, like it's no longer relaxing and enjoyable.
So to Ray's point, I've got it up on there. The question, it says, it feels like vandalism or validation is what I would think to me, and really shouldn't be necessary. Why don't cigar manufacturers stand up and be counted? If something makes it impossible to smoke a cigar, they should replace it. I'm a little tired of the quote, it's a handmade product, end quote, excuse. It's not directed at you, Tyler. All right. So Ray, to me, you're absolutely right to a point. And that's where I was saying, if you have an experience with a brand, with a manufacturer, with certain blend, if you have one, you can just call and say, I'm not buying that again. And if you're at home, to your point, I mean, so like Ray was here in the States, he went to the Smoking 10 event. He got a lot of cigars from the 10 event here in Columbus, Ohio. And if he gets back to Vietnam and he's starting to smoke them, I mean, he only got maybe one of each, so he could give up after one. Like he had a bad experience with, say, this cigar like Nate's having. And he's like, well, I'm not going to buy that again. If you're already home, it's tough for them to stand by it. I mean, you can email them, you can contact them on their website. You can, go back if you're a regular to a brick and mortar that you were with. If you go shop online, you can obviously contact them and say, I had a bad experience with it. The handmade product thing is there's some validity to it because it is, and there's a lot of factors. I was in the moving and storage industry before, and one of the things that we had to look at, especially if you're moving from different climates, say cross country, and you go from the Midwest in the middle of January, and you're going out to Arizona, and I mean there's something there that even the federal regulations, though, they stand by it if you get the right paperwork, that wood will warp and move because of the humidity changes and the fact that you're on the back of a truck and you're going through all of that. You can protect it all you want, but there will be some times where, because it is a product of the environment that you're in, and this is much the same way, is that with it coming from one of the countries that it's like, say, Dominican Republic, and then it goes onto a boat, and it's in there, and then it's on a UPS truck, and then now it's going to a brick and mortar or a warehouse, then it goes back on a truck or whatever it might be. There are some things that I think will be variables that stand by that. If you are shopping, and that's one of the nice things about shopping at a brick and mortar and even smoking at a cigar lounge or a brick and mortar, is that, just like at the tinderbox at Easton, if you're smoking it and you cut it, you're smoking it and you're like, man, I just cannot get a draw. Well, we'll even try to do a draw poker if you'll let us do that. Try that. Still not. We even watch them. You can see it. Not getting anything.
Yeah, almost no smoke coming off.
You light it, and it's just like you draw. Even if it starts, the cherry gets a little red, but at the same time, it's like, all right, and then there's no smoke coming out. I tell you what, let me grab you another one. Mm-hmm. And so to Ray's point, it's not just something. And I'm sure there are shops out there, cigar lounges, that I'd be like, well, what do you want me to tell you? It's not our fault. We didn't roll a cigar. And then they go ahead and just be like, well, if you want to buy another one, you can. That's just a bad customer service.
They don't want to repeat business.
Exactly. I mean, you got to stand by it to a point. Yeah. But with all those steps in the middle of it, I think that sometimes the manufacturer wants to do it right. Again, going back to a multi-vendor event, the Smoking 10 event, there was a year that I remember I read a review that was on Reddit afterwards, and it was this company, was handing out their cigars, and someone went to go smoke it during the event, and it was either cracked or it was like plugged or whatever, and they went up and told the person who was a high level position with that company. And that person was like, I'm really sorry about that, and reached into his suit jacket and pulled out one from his own collection that we weren't even handing out. Here, I tell you what, that's on me. And this person was still pissed. The Reddit review. I mean, if you go into Reddit to talk about this, I mean, we're already at that level, right? I mean, so it's like one of those things that he's like, well, yeah, he was just like, well, why would I want to smoke another one from him? It's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he's trying to be nice. And if I recall correctly, he never even smoked that cigar. He didn't try.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he just threw it in the trash. I'm like, you know what?
The issue for me is the user as well.
Yeah.
Because if you are just handing out free cigars for everyone that says it's not smoking right, I would call myself a novice to mid-level cigar smoker. I really enjoy it, but I'll be 100% honest with you. Do I know what I'm doing? Again, I'd like to think a little bit, more than a lot of my buddies.
I mean, yeah.
But do I? Am I an expert? I'm sitting in between two guys that I hope can teach me a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So if I go and
Don't
say,
hold your breath.
"Oh, this is I'll look to my left to get some knowledge.
Oh.
Just
Stage
joking,
left or your left?
His
Just
Oh,
joking, my
right,
man.
Nate.
I don't know Nate well enough to talk crap to him yet.
Still early.
But I could go, this is drawing well. You guys could say, do this. Oh, my bad.
You didn't cut it yet. You didn't cut it yet.
Yeah, you haven't cut it. But a guy at home, he's going to be like, oh, this is drawing terrible. We'll cut the thing in, pal.
We literally had people say that.
Yeah, but
They'll
you
come up and be
understand
like,
what
man, I'm not going to
saying.
draw you look. And you're like, can I cut it for you?
I mean, who am I to tell the guy that rolled this cigar or whatever that he did a bad job on one of a million cigars? It's the keyboard warriors and all those people that just crush everything, and all the negative reviews. The only reason people go on there is to make a negative review. How many people? I'm going to really enjoy the cigar. I'm not going to go on the internet and be like, "Wow, that was amazing."
On the internet.
Huh.
Just so you know.
Well,
hey, internet.
So we have this one customer at the Tinderbox.
Well, I do real quick. Hold that thought. I do want to put this up there because Ray, to follow up with that.
Yeah.
To your point, he did have that exact experience, opposite of what I was saying, where he was at in Vietnam at a very high end cigar establishment. He was smoking right there, or Ray was smoking right there, and had an issue, and they basically said, "Tough shit, luck of the draw." Like, to your point, like,
Makes
I don't
you
know,
not
Ray,
want
are
to
you
go
gonna
back.
go back?
Don't go back there.
Yeah, I mean,
You may have spent a grand a year,
exactly.
$500 a year,
Yeah.
10 grand a year at that place.
You just don't.
They just
know.
lost.
Yeah.
But we had the Tinderbox. There's one customer that comes in pretty frequently, and he always gets the same cigar, and he gets multiple of them. And there was one day he came back into the store, and Brian, the owner of the Tinderbox, happened to be there, and he was complaining to Brian about one of the cigar. Like, he always buys 2 or 3 at a time, and he was complaining about one of them, and actually showed him pictures. One of the cigars, like halfway through, it blew up on him, and just the wrapper, everything just started cracking.
Yeah.
And he's like, he was talking about, like, yes, it's cold right now. It couldn't just come off the truck. And he goes, well, I smoke in a humidified room. It shouldn't do that. Excuse me?
Good for him.
I will say that person still comes in and he has not complained.
Exactly.
He's one of those customers passively. It's not very active because it's not an open ear for knowledge or advice or anything like that. It's he's the type that tends to know more than you regardless, but he has passively, you can see it now. He does not complain. He's learned a lot through his own experience and coming in.
Yeah. And
it's a world of difference, you know what I mean, about all of this stuff, because he's been a customer for probably 3 years and he buys the same cigar because he's tried other ones. And at one point that same customer said, what did he say? Oh, we had him try the BS Gold.
Yeah.
And he was just like, all right. And then when he came back in, he's like, I was all right, didn't really care for it. And I was like, well, that's actually, our house brand. And he's like, well, that makes more sense because, the ones that are bigger operations, well, they're more hand rolled than others.
He was talking.
I wasn't having a bad day, but I just kind of like, very matter of factly, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by more hand rolled.
he said that too about Cubans because he
Yeah.
was comparing. Like, he said he expected more construction issues with Cubans than Nicaraguans because Cubans are more hand rolled.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Does that mean there's more hands rolling it?
It's tough to say. It's up for interpretation, possibly. And again, I mean, that's the there's nothing against that person. It's just that's the level of where their understanding of what we're dealing with. You know what I mean? So if you have an issue, and maybe that's not really what he meant to say, but it was, I don't know, like maybe it's not as well made or something along those lines, or maybe there is in his mind a machine aspect of the process and certain cigars as opposed to being handmade completely.
But we all have that in our industries, right?
Correct.
Like I like to think if I'm going into the tinderbox, which I enjoy to do, and I'm asking you a question, I'm not going to be like, what are you talking about? Right. I'm asking a question because I genuinely want to know, and I'm going to take that, I'm going to learn from it and move forward. And we get the same thing in the soccer, football world, you know, like I think it's everywhere. There's just people out there that are like that, and they are what they are. They want to know more than the so-called experts or people that smoke 3-4 cigars a day.
The Monday morning quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in your industry.
Do you mean the Cleveland Brown fans like myself?
We haven't really dived into it, but like in your industry, it's like the people that, the glory days, well, like when I used to play back in, high school, this is how we did it. And you're like, that's really great.
You peaked in high school. Congratulations.
No, it's not negative, but it's like, I also played at that level, and I now played at this level, and I've learned a lot along the way. Like same thing with like cigars. Like, when I first started smoking cigars, this is what I learned. Like, great. Now we've all been smoking for 10, 20, 30 years. And it's like, you should learn a bit if you're open to it.
That's the thing. Open, right? That's a key word to, I think, a lot of things. Open. And for me, sitting here, listening, talking about this, I'm really enjoying myself because I'm enjoying the drink. I'm enjoying the cigar, and I'm learning something. That's life.
What'd you say?
Notice he didn't say the company.
Yeah, he didn't really say the
company. I didn't need to say that, did I? Do I have to?
No, certainly not. You said you were an honest guy, so certainly not.
State the obvious.
But to that point, I have noticed that even in the marketing side of it, like you look at this band, right? There's one thing that this does not say that some will say, which is handmade or hecho de mano or a mano.
Hecho de mano.
Yeah, I mean, and that's handmade, but I mean, it's like it doesn't say that, and sometimes they'll put that on cigars. I don't know if it says it on, but I think to a consumer, if they see that and they don't see that, that is depending on the knowledge level or what they have experienced, they might look at it and they look at this and think, well, this one doesn't say handmade, so there's obviously some sort of a machine aspect to the process. I mean, that is just, part of it.
We've literally had customers come into the store and go, which cigars are handmade? It's like,
that whole wall.
All of them. All of those that you see right there.
All right. So,
Jesus.
I feel like this you can put on the right side next time,
But we're sharing. Yeah, it's my bad.
I'll get you an ashtray for part 2.
That's my fault, 100%. I've just done it twice, haven't I? I've done it twice.
Smoke with your left hand.
Shannon, you have something to say? You just
smoke with your left, drink with your right.
Nice. All right. We're learning a lot tonight.
We can move the ashtray.
I'm learning that there's.
These aren't wireless mics, is what you're learning. Because you keep fucking wire.
Wait, I have worked with wireless mics before. I hate to admit it.
You're doing a podcast in a garage.
Mate, this is way better atmosphere. But they're not damn wireless.
You know what we could have done for Duncan that would have made him feel a little bit more comfortable?
What's that?
If you remember when my old church closed down, I picked up the wireless headset mic.
It's over there.
Yeah, so and it's even got one of those that you can either do the lapel mic or you got the headset where the mic comes down your cheek. Yeah, we could have got that out for him. So that way he'd be a little bit
maybe
more
the next time he's on.
I want to look semi-professional. Like at least I've got the same thing as you guys here.
We'll see how it goes.
We also have a handheld.
What I'm saying is probably
there's also a wireless handheld mic. So.
We're good. This is the part of part 1 here where we are going to do the rating, right? And so Duncan, we talked about this prior to the show. 10's the best, right? So out of 10 being the best, you're going to do 3 ratings, 1 on the Peerless. And I looked at it. The reason I was confused, by the way, it says small batch at the top because I think that's just the way that they operate. But the product, if you look underneath, it says straight rye.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was like, when you look it up online, for those that want to look up reviews, this would be the Peerless Straight Rye. You might see it on a small batch, but it is the product is straight rye. I think there's a straight bourbon as well. So it says small batch at the top. I just think that's the way that they operate. You know,
Because they're a smaller operation.
They're a smaller operation. So everything
yeah.
they put out is going to be small batch. So I think obviously there's going to be truth to that. But as far as the product, it says Peerless Straight Rye on the second half of the label there, just so that everyone, you know, if you didn't see the post on Instagram or anything like that. But 10 on that, 10 on the La Gloria Cubana. This is out of 10, rather. The rating on the La Gloria Cubana Criollo de Oro, and then 10 being the best on the pairing between two of them.
Yeah. I like that you do the pairing.
Yeah. So
I think that's important.
Duncan, we're going to start with the guest of honor here.
Start with the guy that knows jack all.
It's perfect.
I'm going to go. I'm not usually a big rye guy, but I do actually enjoy the Peerless Rye. I'm going to go a 7 on the Peerless Rye.
Okay.
I'm not going to say the name. Number one, because I can't.
De Oro.
The Criollo de Oro.
You almost had it.
Oro.
O-R-O on the S.
O-R-O.
Yeah.
Criollo de Oro.
There it is.
There you go.
Wow,
That's
that's
about 90%
that's a
there.
mouthful.
I'll give you a 9 on that.
I'm gonna also go a 7 on that. And
Okay.
when I pair them, I'm actually really enjoying them together. I'm gonna go a little higher on the pairing. I'm gonna go an 8.
8. Wonder why you went with 8.
The Ocho. If it's barely a player, it's me.
All right, Nate. How about you?
1-1. He sounds like a hard customer to please.
Knocks
this
the
guy.
bottle off, throws the cigar down. All right, what's next?
Next segment.
Next.
Cut it.
All right. So Peerless Small Batch Rye, 8.5.
Wow.
I really do enjoy this bottle. Not as much as the double oaked, which everyone that was on the pot, so you, me, and Sean were on for that when we had the double oak. We all gave that a 9. Love that bottle. You know, this one just under that.
Okay.
Because that double oak was spectacular.
So Sean brings better bottles than me. Cool.
Right.
It's not a
Totally different
competition.
product,
Just
totally
joking.
That's about the only thing. No.
All right. The cigar.
Sorry, I love competition.
Cigar, I'm a 7 on the cigar. It's got good flavor. It's just, you know, I've had construction issues with the couple of them that I have smoked. Obviously, like I said, I'm the only one that's really had those construction issues here in the garage today. So I'm not going to, you know, go too hard on the cigar since I'm the only one who's had that experience.
I mean, it's your own personal experience, though. So, I mean, you can rate on that. I mean, and if you guys have been listening to the entire segment, then, I mean, you kind of know where Nate's coming from on that.
Yeah, we did have that happen a while back ago when it was just the two of us, and we had another cigar that you and I both really enjoy, and both of us had construction issues, and you know, we actually played that into our ratings on that cigar, and we kind of went a little hard at that cigar. So I'm going to give the cigar a 7 because, I mean, after I had that first one, it kind of turned me off from smoking this cigar again, but I've still smoked other cigars from that company since. I've still smoked other La Gloria Cubanas. I just hadn't gone back to this one because of that experience.
Gotcha.
And then the pairing, I'm right there with Duncan. I also give the pairing an 8. I like how the flavors complement each other. You know, what little spice there is with the whiskey kind of, and the sweetness with the whiskey balances out with that kind of earthiness and dry cederness that we were getting from the cigar. It's not too overpowering.
Yeah.
Because at first, you know, I remember this bottle having a little bit of spice to it. So I didn't know initially when you told me this is what we were going to be drinking, I didn't know what we were going to be smoking with it. And so I was hoping it wasn't going to be something that had a lot of spice to it because it may have been too much. But I think this was a good cigar to go with this.
Yeah. Shannon, you want to chime in since you did both, right? We have 4 ratings here.
So I'm along the lines of Duncan there. I usually steer away from the ryes. It's not something I ever reach for at the liquor store, but this one's hitting pretty well in the palate. Like I like the flavors. I like the little bit of spice it has. It's not overpowering. Cigar,
What was your number on the
7.
7?
The cigar, it's good. It's a pretty run of the mill for me. It's not. I wouldn't walk into the shop and have it on my brain to pick it out. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Like if we got
That's
talking
fair.
about it, like, oh yeah, that was a decent smoke. I would grab it, but
Would you buy another one? Would you buy a 5-pack? Would you buy a box?
I wouldn't buy a 5-pack. I'd buy another one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd buy another one for sure, but I
If
wouldn't.
it's sitting
buy a
there,
5.
you're in the mood for it. You remember the pocket. Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's along a 7 for me, and the pairing is actually fantastic. They do complement. They kind of neutralize and make a good experience. So I'll go with an 8 for the pairing.
See, it's interesting. I mean, I think that says a lot that you guys are all rating the pairing a little bit higher. You know what I mean? That it shows truly that if you were smoking this cigar, you're drinking this whiskey, but with a different, cigar or whiskey, it may change completely.
For sure.
I've had that conversation recently with some customers because they'll smoke something. I smoked this before and it's really good. I smoked it again. It's like, man, it's just like bitter. It's just, I'm not enjoying this at all. I'm like, well, again, and these are experienced cigar smokers. And I'm just like, well, what'd you eat today? I don't know what it was last time you had it, but like, did you eat? I try to explain to them, like, if I'm more hydrated than if I'm not, you know what I mean? It's, even in the afternoon, I've only drank a little bit of water. That changes my palate because I'm not hydrated. I'm not, it's like I had Mexican food or something like that earlier in the day. That changes my palate. I mean, those types of experiences will affect it. And that's what I'm seeing with you guys. Because if we were just sitting around and just having water, smoking the cigar, and you know what I mean, like, or having a beer with it, could have completely different flavor profile.
For sure.
We had that happen recently with a bottle that we featured that I brought on. Like, we weren't real big fans of that bottle. And then I brought it back into the shop Saturday night for after we closed. And you actually liked it a little bit more that second time. And you're like, yeah, right before we do the podcast, like, this is what I eat. And that probably messed with my flavor palette.
100%.
Yeah.
And bought in a bottle that you said you didn't like and gave it back to you again to have again, which is cool of them.
I think it was more testing me.
Yes.
I was full of shit.
So on Saturday nights, I usually bring in a bottle and I'll do a blind pour for him and Josh that also works at the shop, and I won't tell them what it is. And I'll have them like give their own review and also try and guess like what the proof and stuff like that is on it. And well, yeah, and they're actually
when you make drinking into a research project.
Yes.
I like this project.
We have one, and that's it. But yeah, I mean, you and Josh, do pretty well when you're guessing some of that stuff. Josh does really good on his initial guess, and he second guesses himself.
Well, to Ray, your point also, this is absolutely true. Another thing is he says even the location you smoke the cigar can change the experience, which is absolutely true.
You talked about that, the testing when you guys were testing blends for BS Silver.
Yeah, absolutely. Smoking down in Miami, versus smoking in the Midwest, and different times of the year, you're going to have different experiences. So let me round this out with the whiskey. This Peerless Rye is definitely towards the top of my list of ryes. And I actually had that conversation with that gentleman in the liquor store tonight when he was asking some stuff. We weren't talking about Peerless, but he was saying stuff that he likes some ryes, and he had mentioned the Willet, and I agreed with him. And I said, well, I also like the E.H. Taylor Straight Rye. It's one of my top ones, especially for the wintertime. And he said, well, I haven't had that. Well, Peerless Rye is going to be one that I would definitely recommend people trying. I think I'm going to give. Let me take one more sip here. I need some more. No, I
see how he works.
Yeah,
I see how he works.
I don't know what you're talking about. We got to be able to cheers with a glass.
Can't cheers with an empty glass.
That's right. I'd give this bottle for ryes of what I've enjoyed. I'll give the bottle a 9.
Okay.
Wow. And you like ryes?
I do like ryes. Not all of them, but I do like these. And it's interesting just to note, we didn't really talk about it. I didn't have the bottle, but it says strictly sweet mash, barrel proof, non-chill filtered, no water added. So just so you guys know where they're coming from with that. But I mean, that's where that sweetness comes.
It's vastly different from that rye I brought Saturday.
Which was?
The Ezra Brooks 2-year rye.
Correct.
Which was a 90 proof. But like you and Josh both thought it was a bourbon.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is going to be what I expect out of a rye. It's got some spice, a little more sweetness. I think it adds a little bit more depth to it as far as, what you're enjoying there. So I'll give that a 9. The cigar, I'm a 7.5. For a limited run, I appreciate what they're doing. I like the uniqueness of the blend. I love reading about a blend and learning about it, or talking to someone that actually knows if it's a rep or whoever blended it. I love hearing where I would have never guessed that this is a Connecticut broadleaf binder. It's cool that, the whole marketing behind it is the Criollo de Oro. And then it's a hybrid wrapper leaf that's not used very often. But then you throw in a broadleaf binder. I think that's sneaky in a good way. I mean, you don't see that all the time because Connecticut broadleaf is more often used as a wrapper leaf. But these companies that are using it as a binder, I think it adds, again, depth to it. But on its own, this cigar, I agree with kind of what Shannon said. It's okay. I'd buy it again. But if I walk into a brick and mortar store, or if I look, Tyler says, hey, take a look. What do you want to smoke? Even if I haven't seen this in a while, if there's something else in there that I want to try or whatever, this is not going to gravitate me coming back to it and be like, oh man, I haven't smoked in a long time. Let me smoke that again. It's a good cigar. I recommend trying it, but this is not one. I think this is one of those limited edition ones. And I don't want to deter you guys from taking advantage of the 15% off at Tinderbox for your local. I think this is worth a try. We've all talked about it.
I would try it again.
Yeah, you try it again. I mean, so
I will have it again.
What's this run? I don't
it's
think
around 11.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but with the pairing, I agree with you. It goes well together. So 9, 7.5. I'm back at like an 8, 8.5 on that pairing because it is a very enjoyable pairing. I think they complement each other very well. We could do probably even better if now that we know what the cigar and what the bottle tastes like, we could probably pick out something better on either side of it to really amp that up, take it from your guys' 8s to a 9 and everything, you know what I mean? But
take this and get a different bottle.
Yeah.
Take that bottle and get a different cigar. Fair.
Antique 107, probably. I think a weeded bourbon would go better with this cigar. Yes, I think that sweetness would amp up some of the things that are going on in the cigar.
I think maybe like makers, but antique for me personally, antique at 107, it's got too much spice for me for this cigar. I think that would overpower this cigar.
Interesting.
Again, back to each palate is so different.
So different. With that being said, guys, that's going to round out part 1. I do want to thank our sponsors. Tinderbox at Easton, thank you for this cigar. Again, now until next Wednesday, it's going to be 15% off while supplies last. If you guys want to come in, check that out. Or if you guys are not local and you want to try this cigar, contact us through the page or contact Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, and they can ship out a 5-pack at that 15% off at the very least. Or you can buy a box if that's available. Alternate USA, we're going to be smoking the Romeo y Julieta, Connecticut, Nicaragua, which is a Plasencia product in part 2. I still have about half a cigar because apparently I talk too much. You guys are eating your cigars at this point. And BS Cigar Company, thank you very much for the gold and the silver and sponsoring the show. And then you guys out there, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. You guys can help keep this thing going. We appreciate all the support and continued support. We've got some more raffle prizes coming up starting next week from some of the stuff that Josh Bentley got us.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to one of the raffle winners and supporters, Sean Hurley, specifically out in California. I was able to ship him not only his prize, but also an order that he placed through the Tinderbox at Easton. And Ryan Jones in Illinois, he actually came up with some sort of a slogan is shop localish. Which I love.
Yeah.
Because he's in Illinois, Sean's in California, and I love that. So when I say shop local, it's support your brick and mortar. If you don't have one near you, shop localish. I love that. And Venmo, go ahead.
We still got to get him that sign that's back there signed by all of us.
Well, I'm going to Chicago in July or June, so
bear down.
We talked about that. Bear down,
go.
baby. Venmo at Bourbon and BS if you guys want to buy us a bottle. And then if you like the swag, like the 3/4 that we got on the Raglans, buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. There's a lot of swag on there. including hoodies, the raglans, the 3/4 sleeves, and also some the pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. T-shirts in many colors as well. So, guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Stay tuned if you guys are listening live.
Cheers.
We're going to do a quick intermission, and we'll get into part 2, which is, what did I say? Passing along passion.
There you go.
Yeah. I need to write that down on the board. But we're going to learn about Duncan and his story now that he's got some booze in him.
Get out and try one of these too, by the way.
We got a pizza coming in the garage. All right. That kind of a night.
That'll change the taste of the cigar and bourbon.
All right, guys. Well, cheers, and we will see you in part 2.
Cheers. So my wife had texted me. You were talking about like all the different places that you get asked where you're from because your accent.
Yeah.
My wife goes, "Does he ever get South African?"
Not really. Like I have, but that's probably 4th on the list.
Okay.
Get a
Yeah,
message.
it's usually Australia number 1, England, New Zealand close second.
I can't.
Well, not close second, far behind
Just a
Australia,
second.
distant second, and then South Africa would be
Apparently, she
4th.
thinks we need pizza.
My wife's born and raised here in Ohio, and yet when she meets people, they think she's from Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They do have my business partner, his wife is from Minnesota, and she speaks. I mean, they've lived in England, Toronto, all over, right? So you couldn't tell, but her parents, you're like, fuck, where are you from? And it's it's a weird like accent. It's very different. It's kind of like a comforting Southern accent, but it's not a Southern accent. You know what I mean?
Every time I hear it, it makes me think of the movie Fargo.
Oh God, yeah. Well, they actually bought a place up in the lakes, like way up.
The Border Lakes.
Like it's about you can either fly to Minnesota and drive 4.5 hours, or fly to Fargo and drive like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
One of
So
those
my
lakes up there.
the Boundary Waters. My dad usually every year, him and his brother, they'll go up there on vacation like the first week of June, and so they drive all the way from here all the way up to the Boundary Waters, and they have to hike in all their gear, and it's like 1.5 miles to the first portage with all their gear. So like one of them's got the 55-gallon plastic drum that's got like all their food and stuff in it, and then one of them's carrying the canoe on their shoulders.
One thing I'd like to say about that, fuck that. Are we still hot mic?
Yes, we are.
Oh, yeah.
live.
No, we're live in the intermission right now. It won't be on the audio, though.
Oh, well,
I mean, that's on the audio for this, but.
Yeah.
Ray said when he was living in Columbus, people thought he was everything but English. Irish, Scottish, and Australian. Everything but English.
I'm going to hit the outhouse.
Yeah, where's the outhouse?
It's out here. You got to wait. It's one stall.
I don't want to go outside.
I know.
You gotta wait. It's one stool. What do you think? I'm a cock watcher? Can't know.
Shake it 2 times. There you go.
More than 2 shakes.
Or it's not like a dead spot in the grass as much as this up here.
Oh, no. That's why you usually do it up against the house.
Yeah, like we bought a house in Uptown, Westerville, November, not like
November 2020.
20.
Well,
Yes.
Year and a half ago.
Yeah. So yeah, nearly a year and a half.
Westerville boy.
Oh yeah.
Westerville North.
Oh, nice. Our I guess uptown.
You got piss all over your pants.
So I can't go to
You
that
might want
outhouse.
to wait a minute because, the pit bulls are out there.
You can still go in the house.
You can go in the house. You got 3 bathrooms in there.
Why not piss in nature? I'm relaxing, enjoying myself.
Kristen just said, "Did you really pee outside?" No. Just checking the gutters.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, the pit bulls can't get you when you're there, can they?
I don't know.
I don't want them to think
The
this
one
is a
broke off the
fucking-
lead, and I had to actually literally body slam it.
I don't want them to.
Because it
Neighbor's a
attacked your
great
dog.
neighbor's a great guy, and he's got great dogs, but they're very strong dogs, and he's doing as best he can. And again, he's a great dude, and
Yeah.
But I saw it out back,
Fuck,
and then it turns the corner. I'm like, I was like, it's okay. And then I'm like,
Don't get caught
cut
with
it
pants
off,
down.
cut it off.
Fucking Pitbull's like,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It's a tasty little morsel. With the emphasis on little.
It's not that little. Jesus. I mean, it's cooling off outside.
For a pitbull, it's not a hefty snack.
You know what? Go on. Get out there. Let's see what happens.
Pitbull might be like, you might hear.
Probably won't even see anything. Jesus.
Oh man.
Man, that grass did shoot up, man. I just turned the corner there. I'm like, Jesus.
You gotta get your
It's out
hiking
there.
boots
No.
instead of your chucks.
Use my cleats. All right. This is always those long intermissions. This is great. All right.
Oh, nice job, Sean. Just drop it right on your leg. Oh, I saw it. I saw it because I started laughing. I looked at Steve and I was like, yeah. Oh no, there was someone that was in the shop Sunday, and they were smoking a cigar, and that ash just kept getting longer and longer, and I'm sitting there going, you might want to knock that ash off a little bit. They had their hand on one of the tables, and they go to put the cigar up to their mouth, and the ash landed right on one of their fingers, and it sat there for a little until they actually realized, and they're like, "Oh, son of a bitch!" And I was like, "Because we had
say a fucking word.
Trying to help you.
we had one of our regulars.
Pitbull get you.
He was talking to another one, like his ash had fell off the cigar and landed on his knee, and like the next day he still had a mark on his knee, and he literally goes, "It's like it was on fire." I was like, "No shit." So when Sunday when that customer, this other customer, dropped the ash on his finger, he goes, "Damn, that was hot." And I was like, "Yeah, it's almost like it was on fire, wasn't it?"
Put it on me. It's that guy. Yeah.
All right, you guys
There
ready?
you go. Wait, give me.
What are you doing there?
Just fixing my fucking
It's
shocker.
a mess over there.
It is.
He's not the first person.
Yeah,
There's
that's fair. Do you want to cut the second one before we get started?
We want a piece of pizza for you, sir?
We got pizza over there. Thanks
I'm
to
all right,
Kristen.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm good, thank you.
That would be post
I'm gonna pour a little
podcast.
more Peerless.
There you go.
You need a little bit more down there, or is your 7 just bullshit?
What I mean, what was this? This was an 8.5.
Oh, my bad.
This was yeah 7. No. That was the cigar.
I gave it a 9, so here I'll just take this over
Yeah,
here.
you should.
No, I had to give it an 8.5 because like it's for me. It's not as good as the double O.
No, I'm not messing with you.
I have
7.2.
0.2. It's like no, I'm like 7, 7.5. and like
score. Obviously, you don't know.
It's like the pizza guy. What's the guy?
All right. Well, hopefully we'll get the connection back here. Hopefully, no, we're still live, but it's a little choppy.
a couple years ago,
Can't see
someone
Duncan's handsome face on the screen too well. Yeah, Ray. Wi-Fi issues a little bit. I don't know. Apparently now WoW is being bought out by someone, and that's
the Russian
Wow.
judge.
Ah,
Because
Wow,
the way I
yeah,
would
yeah.
judge stuff, they're like,
I got
that's kind of
that,
critical.
You know,
like, holy
mailer. Like,
shit.
I'm gonna switch you over. I'm
Mine
like,
probably sounded critical
probably gonna be worse.
for the bourbon, but I'm not a rye guy.
Exactly.
Worse.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, 7 for a rye is like
Good.
good. But my
Well-
palate is also changing.
But
As
see,
you get older, your palate changes.
For me, in
I'm
the
gonna
2
switch back to
years that we've been
Spectrum here.
doing the ratings aspect, the first whiskey I ever gave a 10 to was a rye.
Wow. Ooh, hello.
Hey, come on.
Do you need these chairs?
It's my grandma's chairs. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 216, part 2. This is Beyond the BS. We are still joined in the garage by Nate Hale, myself, Steve Crane, and our guest, Duncan Oughton. And for those that weren't listening to part 1, make sure you click back on the audio or start the feed over again. We reviewed the Peerless small batch straight rye whiskey and also the Gloria Cubana Criollo de Oro. And we talked about both those companies, both the products, and also reviewed bullshit a little bit as well. And so hopefully you guys enjoy that. And if you haven't listened to it yet, make sure you click back. We have a lot of listeners that literally just listen in for part 2, Duncan.
Yeah.
Which
Really?
It's the life topic. Tonight we're going to be talking about passing along passion. And the reason I said that, and I'll kind of give a little bit of a background here. Duncan and I have known each other for many years, well over a decade. Yeah.
For sure. Easily.
I don't know. I mean,
Easily.
you're older than I am, so.
So my memory should be worse, but apparently it's not.
Yeah, so
15,
we'll kind of get into
years.
that. Yeah, but Duncan and I have known each other, and it's kind of a cool, in my opinion, story. And it's something that I love the history there about. We met literally just hanging out at a pub. And it was something that, I mean, right? I mean, that's basically how it happened.
It was just,
Yeah,
having a beer at Fado.
Yeah, we had some
We
beers.
bumped into each other a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like conversation, pint, all that stuff, and then it turned into one of those friendships where it's like, hey, we're getting together at this, you want to meet up, and that kind of
Christmas parties.
Christmas. Still have that video of
parties plural.
when I won that Santa T-shirt
You did.
and
You did win a
rode
Santa
a
t-shirt.
mechanical bull.
That was some people would call it epic. I don't know if there's a word that goes bigger than that, but it was a night.
I didn't last.
It
The 8
was an
seconds.
afternoon.
I didn't last the 8 seconds on the bull.
No,
That
you-
is for
no, you-
goddamn sure.
The bull's still crying.
They closed that bar down, right?
It's now a wedding venue, believe
Yeah.
it or not. The
Oh.
love you made to that bull, they changed the venue.
Oddly enough,
Completely.
the bull is still there. Anyways, but so like Duncan and I, we were hanging out, and then shortly after I met him, I realized that he had a history with the Columbus crew, and that's what
correct.
brought him to Columbus. And so that was one of those things. It was kind of cool because, you were a professional athlete. You had this great story, and you came from New Zealand. And I'll give you an opportunity to kind of give your story a little bit, but it was so great to meet someone that, was having some great success in his life for a nice amount of time. And all it was is just a couple of guys hanging out, having beers, and just, again, bullshitting, like literally like it is in pubs, like it is in cigar shops. You don't know the walk of life that brought you there, but all of a sudden you realize, like you were saying in part 1, you were at a cigar shop in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you meet this older gentleman that has been in space multiple
Numerous
times. And it's just literally, and then you just have a conversation. But it was just one of those things, like you didn't approach him because you knew who he was or anything like that. You just started talking and you start finding out about their life, and you're just like, this is awesome. You're a great person. And then on top of that, you've got these great, experiences that, I don't know, it was our friendship. It was funny to me because it was really kind of summed up with being this fun, get together, supportive friendship. And then one of the times, and I'll let him kind of talk about this, but he came back to Columbus on a trip, and he texted me. He's like, hey, I've got an extra ticket to the crew game tonight. You want to go? And I was like, all right, yeah, sure. I'm free. I'll go. So he picks me up, and we're driving the crew game. We meet up with a couple buddies. We're smoking the BS Gold in the parking lot. And we're just kind of tailgating. All right, calm down. And
Easy.
Keep talking.
so we're tailgating in the parking lot outside of Crew Stadium, the old Crew Stadium now, and
Historic Crew
as
Stadium.
the
They
game,
call
like
it.
it's about to start, everyone's kind of going into the stadium, and hey, Duncan, hey, you come to the game tonight? Yeah. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. And I'm like, all right. And then like another like 10, 15 people, everyone walking in the Crew Stadium is like, hey, Duncan, hey. And I'm like, all right. And then we get in the stadium. more
had
of
that
it, more of the
experience.
same. You know what I mean? Then we're walking to our seats, and it's like he stops and talks to these people and sits down with them. So I'm like, I feel a little bit like that. Like that girlfriend that just kind of like standing there holding my bag while he's talking to everyone. I'm just like, cool. And eventually I was like, do you remember that? I was like, Duncan, I'm going to be up at Nordic. I'm going to go grab a beer. When you're done, if you want to come meet me, I'll be up there. He's like, just give me like a thumbs up. I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Thanks for the ticket, man. So eventually, so it was like one of those things. It was like a full circle. Like he was a big deal to a lot of these fans, and to me, it's just Duncan, like my buddy.
Just
some
ego minute for no.
I mean, and he's not that great of a person.
Oh, wow. Wait, hold on.
All right. No, maybe I'll say differently after I drink.
No.
So I guess my point is getting back to that. You come to a week or so ago, and we were talking on the phone trying to catch up because now you live back here and you had all these experiences that I want to hear about. But when we were talking about, we kind of talked about having you on the podcast. You know, you have a busy schedule, you're traveling a lot, and one thing that really resonated with me is that your daughter is now how old?
She just turned 7. Well, one of my two just
Yeah.
turned 7.
Yeah, Olive turned 7.
Yep, she did.
So your oldest turned 7, and he said that, well, you know, we're talking about getting together. And he's like, you know, Thursdays is soccer night, right?
Wednesday soccer,
Oh,
Thursday dance,
right.
Friday soccer.
But he said something to me like, she really likes soccer.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like what to talk about tonight. And I think that, you know, the whole passing along passion is something that you've been doing for a very long time in a way that just comes across in your everyday life. To my, you know, from my perspective, my vantage point is that even when we were just buds hanging out and having pints together, it was never about like what brought you here. It was like literally just let's hang out. And then now I saw all of the stuff as I learned more about you. You had this great success that, you know, got you into Columbus and to the country and this the soccer experiences. And then it's also platformed you into your current career, but dealing with players, teammates, as a coach, as all these things that I kind of want to hear about and give a kind of your I guess a little bit of your story. But up until my most recent experience and interaction with you, it was now your daughter and with soccer, and just I could hear it in your voice when we were talking on the phone about how there was this excitement and this passion about that. And you're thinking we're just talking on the phone, but this is where my mind is. I'm like, dude, this is fucking fantastic. I just love the fact that after all these years that you still are that person that it's just this genuine passion for life and what you can accomplish in it and just following your dreams. Go ahead, Duncan.
First, let's cheers to that. Bloody hell. That's the nicest thing he's ever said to me, by the way.
That is absolute fact.
Yes, it is. No, so look, I mean, I'm sitting here. I've got my passions. Obviously, Nate, Steve, you've got your passions, and that's why you're here, which is awesome that it brought us three together and you guys together as well, and everyone out there together. I mean, it's cool. Like, and why wouldn't you want that? If you've got something you're passionate about, to share it and to, you know, help other people learn about it, enjoy it, whatever. That to me, that is life. You know, you can have all these material things, you can have, you know, money, you can have all this stuff, but it doesn't necessarily make you happy. It's nice to have certain things, certain people that make you happy, and, you know, sharing what you love to me is awesome. And the fact that my daughter walked off her first soccer game, she's never really played. I've never really tried to force her to do it, to play, to do any of that. And she was like, she walked off. I was like, what do you think? You know, and I was kind of like a little nervous. My freaking balloon knot was like, because I wanted to like it, you know, I wanted to be around soccer more as much as I can.
Yeah.
And she was like, I loved it, Dad. And I mean, this is our 18, right? She can't listen to this. She was horrific. Like, she was so
she should be in bed
bad.
first of all.
She was so
It's
bad.
late.
She was so bad. We've never really practiced or anything like that, you know. And I just stood back in the corner. I want to be the dad that's having a coffee in the corner, or if it's an evening game, potentially a bourbon in a coffee cup in the corner.
Irish coffee, whatever.
Exactly. And she came off and she's like, I absolutely loved it, Dad. When's the next game? And that's all you want as a father.
How'd you feel?
Like she didn't even care about.
You talked to me soon after.
Yeah,
like,
that was last week.
I mean,
yeah.
we talked I was down at the beach. It was spring break, you know.
Oh, yeah.
and For my kids now, you got to do all your holidays around kids. Like, God, the old days when we used to hang out, selfish life was a good life, but this life's a little different. It's great too.
Used to be that way.
It's great. It's also great.
I don't have any kids.
But it probably had to feel good.
I do a
that,
podcast in my garage and drink. Welcome. I'm back for a night.
Do you need me as a guest every week?
But no,
Megan, no. Megan, no.
so let me ask you this. So you said, you know, in your opinion, you know, someone who played professional soccer, she didn't do that well, but she loved
not
it.
harp on
No,
that.
no,
Can we
no,
not?
no, no, hold on. Hold on.
If I'll
Hold on. But you said that she came off the field and she absolutely loved it. She had a great time. She really enjoyed it.
Which is exactly what I want.
I was going to ask you, which would you prefer? Her to play bad and absolutely love it, or for her to play well and be,
If I could meet you in the middle somewhere, that would be awesome.
Well, no, but I mean, again, you had to think about it. Everyone, like even you, Duncan, you know that you had this talent, right? But the only way that you get to be good at something is practice and skill. I mean, you know, again, I'm not going to be the only one that stands up for your daughter here, but
no,
I mean, the first time you played soccer, you're probably shit. The first game.
it's probably a fair comment.
But if you enjoyed it, which clearly there was some sort of a passion there, is that, you know, you worked at it. You wanted to get better. You wanted to be better at it.
So what my mom tells me, and this is not
Can we get her on here?
very, very few people know this. I probably could call her on fucking WhatsApp right now.
I'll send her the link.
Yeah,
We'll get her on the
I got to
screen.
get her speaking on here. She says, because my dad played, and when I was a baby, I was up in my crib, not in my crib, in my stroller, like trying to watch the game when I was like very young.
And he was playing?
And he was playing at the time. And my brother, on the other hand, who's a little bit younger than me, when he was young and dad was playing, or there was soccer going on, football where I come from, he was in the playground, didn't give a crap. Like, so it's just different minds, again, different tastes, different palates, different. We talked about this in the first segment, you know, like it's just everyone has different things. And to me, my thing was football, was soccer. I loved it. And everyone that sat there and watched me play it when I was lucky enough, and lucky, you know, there's the saying, it's better to be lucky than good, you know, which is very true. I think you have to be both. But, you know, they sat there and watched. I felt like, you know, when we went to that game, I didn't always love to going to games after I'd retired, after I was done, because especially early on, it was very hard for me to ever watch a game or hang out with a buddy at a game, because everyone wanted to say hi or talk for a minute or sign, like for me to sign something or do something. And not being big-headed or anything, but I wanted to do that for them, but I also invited you to a game so we could hang out and watch a game and do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I honestly thought it was very cool to see, because I don't know, because to me, I want to see friends do well, and to see that recognition was very cool to me. I say it in a fun way, you know, when I was describing it, but I mean, I've told people about that night because it was very cool to be able to be that kind of fly on the wall and see someone that I care about. And I've had great experiences, great conversations with them. We talked about a lot. I mean, just like this show, you know, it's like over a cigar, over some beers. And it's like, you went through some shit. I went through some shit. And it's like, everyone does, but to see the recognition from people that they get that joy just by seeing someone that you respect, and to see that kind of respect from a different angle, it's like, well, I could have interjected and be like, oh, you think this dude's great? Let me tell you about the time that we were on we did a bar crawl, and and let me pull up some pictures here. It's like one of those things. It's like, but it's because there's just pure joy there.
Yeah.
It's just all the happiness. No, to you, you're dealing with like, well, I used to be out there. Oh,
yeah.
My life is evolving, but if you handle it gracefully, you passed along a lot of knowledge to, players. You were commentary for the crew for a while. That you had the fans that cheered you on playing. Now they love seeing you or hearing you, and then it's like now again full circle. Now it's your family.
Yeah, of course.
It's not just soccer. This is you as a person.
No, I mean, look, I would love my daughter to be really into golf. As terrible as I am at golf, I bought her a little set of golf clubs because if she wants to hit the golf ball and we can go out and have a round of golf together, I can get a little bit better at it. So when I go with my buddies, I don't suck and lose. You know what I mean?
She's going to be the female Cam Smith.
Yeah. Goodness me. At the moment, I just wanted to enjoy everything she does, and she's going to choose what she wants to do.
Absolutely.
So when she walked off that soccer field, to me, it was like the people I talked to at the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to say, when they get called the next year and say, do you want to buy season tickets? I want them to be like, man, we might see that or that conversation with that guy. I want everyone to love the sport.
Yeah.
I want America to understand the sport better.
Yeah.
It's weird to say now I help represent players and do that stuff. I'm rooting for America. I'm from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Like I genuinely want America to win the World Cup. Like
so
I do. I mean, yeah, of course I want New Zealand to win the World Cup, but I'm also a realist. Like, I mean, not being disrespectful. We've got a good
listeners from New Zealand down here.
We've got a good team in New Zealand, but America just has so much talent here. There's so much stuff. They genuinely could win a World Cup, and that's what I want.
And that'd be a great rebound for what happened recently.
Yeah, of course. Like 4 years ago, it was a kind of a bit of a disaster,
bit of a mess,
and they're where they should be now.
Mm-hmm.
So my passion for the sport, I want to, I guess, ooze might not be the right word, but I want it to ooze out of me and just cover everyone else, as you guys do with the cigars and
I think that's the whole thing. Being passing along passion is exactly that. It is like oozing it out. This is your day to day. I mean, this is especially in the climate we've been in for the last couple of years. It's like there's been so much negativity, so much like restrictions, so much of all like it can be frowned upon sometimes to like find joy in some of the things that other people might find trivial, like cigars, whiskey, sports. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what does it matter? Like in the real world, it's like, because this is a passion. There is a business behind it. There are things that you can do. And yes, you're not necessarily saving lives, but I mean, you are bringing joy to people that are living. And I think that's very important.
But mate, if you find enjoyment in anything, I think it helps the day go by.
Yeah.
And there's people out there, like we talked about in segment 1, that they seem like people that can't find joy in anything. I smoke cigars because I find them relaxing. I really enjoy a nice smoke. I think it's a social thing too, for me personally. When I was down in DC, my business partner and I, we'd just be having a day, and we were like, smoke lunch? Sure. We'd go across to Georgetown Tobacco, sit in the store, and you know how much productive work we got done when we actually leant back in the old school leather chairs, just like this, and it's something that I respect a lot, and I found enjoyment in, and I want everyone to feel that about soccer, football. Yeah. Maybe not to the extent I do personally. I understand that, but just a little bit. And the people that played in the past, whatever your story is, whether you were the best, the worst, whatever, if you can go on to be a referee, if you can play in high school, if you can do whatever, to me, I'll always listen to that story. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, like there's these guys that were going to be the best player in the world and they got hurt and they would have kicked my ass and all that. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's great. Like because you're going to tell 100 people that story.
Yeah.
And 5 of them might believe you, but
Yeah.
50 of them might say, let's go to a game. And that's what I want.
Well, when you talk to people and you're talking about something you're passionate about, they can honestly hear it in your voice. If you actually are passionate about whatever it is, other people can hear that. They can pick up on that and they can recognize that and they can feed off of that. So like in the cigar industry, when you're passionate about cigars, like Steve and I are, and you're talking to customers about cigars, if you're genuine and they can pick up on that and it's kind of infectious. Like they become a little bit more excited when you recommend a cigar because you tell a story, you know, about your experience with that cigar or something like that. And, you know, Steve talked about, you know, when you would go to a game, you know, you're going just to hang out, but other people are like, oh my gosh, you know, here's Duncan. Like I want to go up and talk to that person. Like it brings another level of excitement. We've seen that in the cigar shop. So at Easton, there's the Funny Bone, which is a comedy club.
One of my neighbors, Dave Stroop.
And well, we've had some, you know, some pretty big name comedians come in and hang out in the cigar shop, and like they're coming to the cigar shop because they just want to hang out, smoke a cigar, chill. But then other people who are fans of them and recognize them, like all of a sudden that makes their day. It's just like saying hi to that person or hanging out with that person. And it's really cool to all of a sudden see like a fan like kind of light up when they see that person get to talk with that person. And like I've been on both sides of it. When I first started working at Tinderbox, I was there for like not even a year, and Dan Patrick came in the store. And like I recognized who he was, and you know,
you hear that voice too.
Yeah, well, he was walking.
Speaking of voices,
he was he was walking up to the store, and as he's walking towards the store, I'm like, that guy kind of looks like Dan Patrick. And he walks the entire length of the wall, comes back. I asked him if there was anything he was looking for, and then he started talking. I was like, I thought that may have been you. I just didn't want to be one of those people. It's like, oh my gosh, but no, every time he comes in, because he had a kid that went to school in the area, every time he'd come in, you know, I'd recognize who he was and talk to him. And the last time I saw him in the store was about to close, and he's like, hey, they still allow you to smoke at the pub next door? And I was like, yeah, as long as you're on this side of the patio. And he's like, want to come have a beer with me? I'm like, absolutely. Like all of a sudden I'm like, yes, I'm going to have beers with Dan Patrick. But then it was that same thing. Like suddenly I'm in that situation you were, Steve, where I'm just sitting at a table smoking cigars and having a beer with Dan Patrick. Like you're going to a soccer game with Duncan, but then other people are coming up to him and, you know, like they're geeking out, and you're just like, yeah, this is just cool for me.
Well, and to a point, you know, I think you guys are hitting on a lot of aspects of that with the fact that I go back to part one of this show tonight when we brought up Basil Hayden's. There's this identity to it, right? So this is one of those things that soccer, for example, you know, like Duncan, before I met you and even after I met you, I mean, I'm just like, yeah, I played soccer when I was like, you know, 5-6 years old, because my parents were much the same way. You know what I mean? Like it's like, all right, we want you to try everything.
What do you want to play?
My dad wanted us to play basketball and baseball. Those were his sports, but it was like, you know, he wasn't a big soccer fan because this is the 80s and soccer was a sport that kids played. But that's about, honestly, at that point, that was about it.
No one knew a whole lot about it here.
It wasn't it, unless
especially
you had
in the Midwest,
roots,
right? Like,
unless you had roots in
foreign, like
Europe mainly, you know,
for sure.
You just didn't have there wasn't an identity there. You know, hockey was a little bit before you guys, right? You know, as far as soccer, but it's like all of this stuff is like you have to somehow you have to break that barrier of identity, whether it's you meet an athlete in a positive way. You know, it's like, you know, Nate, you with Dan Patrick, it's like, you know who he is. You saw him growing up on Sports Center, but it's like, I would tend to guess that if you stumble across his show on TV or on, on a podcast or whatever, you're going to do that because you're going to have a little bit of that identity of this experience that you talked about. Same thing, with the crew is I did start enjoying it. I still don't. I follow it like through when it's on when they won the MLS Cup recently, second time, right?
Yep. We won it in 08 and they won it in 20.
It's so fun to see that. I mean, I was glued to the TV. Yeah, I mean, it was during the
pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing to see.
We were
that.
watching it in the shop.
Yeah.
According to some people, it's the question mark trophy.
Right.
Those people can
what?
do one.
Fuck off.
You can say fuck off.
I can't say that, can I?
I can.
Yeah, we can all
You
say
can.
it. You can say whatever you want.
They can do exactly what you guys say.
No, but I mean, you saw that. I think Columbus is one of those cities that they've grown the identity through all of this stuff, and there's that growing period. But I do think that passing along passion is exactly how sports like that can grow. Is that now it's a time thing? There's a generational thing. It's passing things along. You know what I mean? And I loved what you said, Duncan, when the fact that you brought up the fact that your father played as a child and you were standing up in your crib trying to watch it. Well, that didn't happen a whole lot in the States.
No, of course not. And I think
it just didn't.
The coaching side of it as well. Like the parents of our generation knew baseball, basketball, American football. They didn't know soccer. Like none of them, they didn't even have soccer in most places.
No.
And so how is someone that knows zero about it going to say, hey, son, this is what you should do? I mean, I have daughters and one of them's doing dance. I know zero about it, but if she enjoys it, I'll take her there every.
Before, by the
I'll
way.
take.
You know a little bit of something.
You do pirouette or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't call it that.
Are you talking about dry humping?
I didn't.
I was going to ask if there was a pole involved.
Again,
but
I
all
was
right.
a fly on the wall.
Take yourself out of the equation. I see how you are. No, but I mean, when you grow up and it's not kind of given to you, or I mean, look, if we taught a kid that red is blue and blue is red, they're gonna think that exact way.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And I want my kids to see red, blue, green, orange, yellow, and like what they like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think, I don't know why I'm that way, but I am. And soccer is something that I really like. I hope they like it, but I don't want to. If I force it on them, I feel like they'll like it less.
Yeah. You see that with a lot of parents, like that, they loved a particular sport when they were growing up, like a parent, they played baseball in high school or basketball, or, they were the football star in high school and it never materialized into anything beyond that. And then all of a sudden they have kids and like, that's what they want to push their kids towards.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I was a great baseball
Live
player.
vicariously.
Yeah, exactly. Like they want their kid to have the same passion that they did for the same things that they were passionate about. And I think some parents fail to let go if that kid doesn't have the same passion that they do. Like, so if you were a great baseball player in your mind, you made it all the way through high school, but then your kid's like, no, I don't want to play baseball. I want to play this sport. And you're like, well, I don't know anything about that sport. Like, I can't teach you anything. There's like, they almost feel let down, but at the same time, it's like, no, if your kid legitimately has a passion for this, you need to be behind them and support them for that because it's their life, not yours.
Do I want my daughter to have a passion for dance or freaking underwater freaking hockey? No, I don't.
I'm not familiar with that sport.
Yeah, but I hope she doesn't. But if she does, I'm gonna be her biggest fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not because she's my daughter; it's because that's what she likes. Who am I to say that sucks?
Well, I look at again, and Sean, hang 1 second here, with you, and I really think that this is a big part of it. Is that yes, you had success with soccer. It really was a springboard to so much, not only in the sport, but what's continued beyond that, right? And you did manage. Your career as a player was successful. And then,
unfortunately, I played at the wrong time in this country.
but to you did. It's like it's like baseball players back in the day. They're like, if you
the
talk
salaries
if you talk to them now and you're like, did you know that Bryce Harper signed a contract for this? They'd look at you and be like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I was working a part-time job in the offseason.
Yeah.
And I was the best player in the league.
Like Babe Ruth signs a contract for $36,000 and
But it was
Mike Trout got 35.
But again, it was something that so there's two sides of that. Yes, financially, yes, you should have been born way later.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
But
Dumbasses.
But to the
You could have held off a little bit.
my point is with the topic of all this is that passing along the passion is exactly that. The things you're talking about. If your children or the people around you're passionate about something, you can want to be the best at whatever you are. You want to be the best soccer player. You want to be the best baseball player. You want to be the best salesperson. As long as you are continuously like working on it. That's what I brought up, going back to the story that really brought this topic on in my mind, having the conversation with you last week about your daughter Olive playing her first game. Whether she's a phenom or she is just happy about doing it, there's a lot of lessons that she could play soccer for the next 10 years.
And beyond in something else in soccer.
But it's just the fact that look at what you've accomplished, and we still haven't really highlighted your life in a sense of where what got you into that and where you went from after. But it's the fact that now your career is based off of your successes and your life lessons, your setbacks, all of that stuff. But the things you learn as you're going through that, if you truly dedicate yourself to that passion, it's not always going to equate to a paycheck. But there are going to be things that you can learn from really dedicating yourself to that passion and learning the skills of what if you sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Not everyone's going to be the best soccer player. Not everyone's going to be the best. Like they don't have the talent. They can work on the skill, but the talent's not quite there. There's just not that, right? And same thing with anything else in life. You may not succeed in what your end goal is, but that road can take a lot of turns. But the fact is that if you actually embrace some of those setbacks and you embrace some of the things you learned along the way, because you are giving your all in the passion, not only can you succeed from that now, like, again, you're a scout right now, right? I mean, you talk about your business partner. This business that you're involved in right now is you realize that this is not always going to be your life, but you can grow from that experience. And the aspects of work ethic and the fact that you embrace that passion, now you can actually project that into a new venture. You can project that into a new era of your life, whether it be your job, you have kids and a family. You project that into that. You give it your all. If you do it half-assed the whole way, chances are you're going to do that going forward as well. And you're going to have this shortcoming as your expectation all the time.
Agreed, 100%. If you're gonna go, why give yourself the excuse or look back and say I didn't really go,
or I'll never be that good?
Like people give themselves the I should have tried harder, or I should have done this, and what could have happened. I'm like, you know what? If you are in it, give it a crack. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so you love it. Maybe there's something else within it, or you have to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because we all love stuff. Doesn't mean that we're going to succeed in it or do whatever. But if you really give it a go, you're never going to look back and regret and say, man, I wish I'd tried harder at that. And that's really, the first step for me, we go back to Olive again,
Mm-hmm.
and sorry, my little love, like,
Love it.
Like I don't want to make her the example, but I don't want to push her into it. I don't want to do it. I want her to love it. And then if she does love it and she wants to do it and she wants to continue doing it, then it becomes like, if you're doing it, you may as well do it. You don't want to look back and say, you know what, I could have practiced yesterday, but I didn't because I wanted to watch the iPad.
Yeah. I play video games.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you,
but you might find a new
if you're
passion.
gonna go, and yeah, maybe video games is a passion. If it is, I better learn how to play because I really suck. I mean, I do. I know the old school Atari, man. That's about it.
God, you're old. Sean, go ahead.
Actually, comment on what you just said, because I grew up playing soccer since I was little. I played high school, college, club, coached high school, coached club. I met you a couple of times with Wassa Eagles, and there was a time when I was coaching in my high school. What I loved about coaching in high school, it was every day, and I played with the kids as I would coach too, and I actually learned a lot from doing that. And it was right when I was probably at my peak is when the MLS came out, and I've kind of.
Did you kick the kids?
No. Well, as long as no one saw it, but
good.
As long as they did what they were told.
No, but
there were no cell phones at the time.
But the pagers weren't even a thing back then. No. So
God, you're old too.
I am. I'm an old man. So, but you know, I got really good by, you know, improve my playing skills by coaching every day. And it was right about the time the MLS started happening. I told you before the show, I went to the first game. And it was one of those times where I kind of at least should have tried out, but I didn't, and I regret it. But when I look ahead, I mean, a few years later after I, you know, kind of got through that phase, I had a brain tumor. And I lost my peripheral vision, like I mentioned. And that is vital, essential in the game of soccer. So I just turned to coaching instead. But I also got to golf. I learned to golf more. I mean, back then I did play a lot now. And but because I didn't do that, and probably would have worked out for the better because I had the brain tumor anyway. Coaching was just as fulfilling because I was able to see these kids grow, watch them learn, watch them grow. And you and I discussed too, when I was coaching these kids, it was 10 plus years ago. Now they're in college, well, they're out of college, but a couple were All-American players and a couple were, you know, really, really amazing players. And it was kind of like, those were my kids. And I'm sure you can attest to that. They're like you just met one of your buddies or one of your players from not too long ago, having a beer with them now. And it's such a fulfilling experience to do that. And I'm friends with so many of the players now over the years that, you know, they still call me coach. I had one kid that I coached in high school. He ended up walking the Appalachian Trail, the entire thing. And I congratulated him on it. And he was like, thanks, man. He's like, you know what? I thought of you a lot going through that because you were the one that pushed me the most. And like, it just goes a long way just to be able to do that. The other thing,
it's amazing how the passion spreads, right? Like
yeah.
You taught him the passion of soccer.
Yeah.
But from that, like the drive or what you put him potentially through in your training, in your teaching, in your whatever, he took that to the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't
cool.
even,
Work
it's
ethic.
not even, it's a work ethic. It's a like, hey, if I'm going to give this a crack, I'm going to give it a crack.
Yeah.
And when he went to the Appalachian Trail, he's like, I can't stop now. Coach would kick my ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's part of it. You know,
Yeah.
that's part of when you pass it down, you're not just passing down a sport or a stick, you know, a cigar or a drink or a whatever. You're passing down like there's meaning behind it. There's more to it. And that to me is when people say, you know, legends never die, right? Anyone that considers themselves a legend outside of in my sport, a few people are crazy. But the legend of any single person in the world never dies if you've passed down great stuff to a number of people.
That's cool.
And that kid will remember that. And he did. And it probably pushed him a little further. And next thing you know, he's at the end.
Yeah.
To me, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that a lot of it is if you live your life with passion, right? Even if you affect one person,
that's all I wanted to do.
That's exactly it. You know, you don't always have to be at this large scale and affect hundreds, thousands, millions of people. You know, if you live your life with passion, whatever you're doing, if you try to have that, and that's what I was talking about with like having Duncan on, is that it was so cool to see that, and knowing you, Sean, knowing you, Shannon, Tyler, Nate, all the people that are listening, is same thing with this community. Is same thing. It's like I love seeing the fact that people are connecting and impacting each other's lives. And the biggest compliment that I think that anyone can receive is what you're talking about, is that you live your life with passion, and you project yourself in a certain way, and hopefully it's true to yourself, and that you actually can look in the mirror and receive that as well.
Yeah.
But also that the people that you're projecting that to, and you're trying to give them that, whether it be sports, whether it be just advice, whatever it is. But if you live your life that way, now all of a sudden you are impacting someone. You're a leader, whether or not you realize it or want to be. But when that kind of situation happens, whether it be a sport that then transcends to this trail or this venture that you're doing, you can take that from sports, or being that constant, the work ethic and all that stuff. You may not be. It's kind of like, say, the best salesperson is not always the best sales manager. The best player is not always the best coach. But there are these things that sometimes the best coach isn't always the best player, but they find their niche. They find their position. And if you keep working and you keep having that self-assessment that this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do the best I can, you're going to have impact on people, on your circle, the circle around it. And this will, whether or not you realize it in this day and age of like subscribers and the likes and this feedback, but trust me, if you are doing that, there are people you have never met that have absolutely had their lives impacted on your efforts if you do that.
Yeah. And
100%.
it's true, because there was a kid I coached in high school. He was the biggest problem child. I mean, I almost kicked him off the team, but I still gave him a chance, and we had to sit down and talk, and he worked through it, and I never gave up on him. And now he's coaching high school, and same thing. He reaches out to me, hey man, I use a lot of your techniques and coaching. And so,
and that's, how does that, I mean, it feels amazing to you, but to the next kid that he passes that on to the next kid that's passed on to, it continues your passion along the line.
I love it. Yeah.
Really realizing it. And I mean, look, that's why I feel lucky sitting here with these two guys.
Sure.
I'm learning about this.
Yep.
I enjoy cigars. I'm learning something. It makes me more amped to, I need to get down to the tinderbox real soon.
Yeah.
I need to. I've been back and I haven't, and for numerous reasons, traveling and etc. But it's like, this is, to me, it's like guys that actually give a crap, girls that give a crap. That's who I want to surround myself with.
Sure.
That's who I want to be around. And
well, Ray puts it up there. Passion is contagious. It is influence.
Yeah.
There you go, Ray.
Yeah. And that's what
I do want to get Doug's comments up here too.
And that's what I love about in this part of the era that I did grow up, because there was no social media, there's no phones, there's no anything. It was all about, all you had to worry about was each and every day. And, you're out there coaching. The kids aren't distracted with freaking cell phones and everything like that. And I think that was a good era for me to be able to coach kids like that. And,
that's a really good point, because as players, when we were professional players without social media, really, I mean, there was maybe Facebook.
Yeah.
It would have been horrific.
Sure.
I feel like I would have shown up on something.
Oh, I'd have had a bag. I would have had a bag.
No, you weren't playing when I knew you, so you'd be fine. You'd be fine.
If I were the case now, every day I'd practice, I'd have a bag and everybody throws their freaking phones in it. No one's touching anything while we're playing.
I mean, that's the way to do it. But it's not even that. It's like, for the pro guys, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You hug someone because you hug them. You know, after a game, some fan says, "Oh, can I get a hug?" You give them a hug, and next thing you know, it's on social media.
It's on TMZ.
Oh, look at this! It's just, it's insane now.
Yeah,
I mean, and then next thing you know, they want $5,000 to make the photo go away or whatever. It's like stupid. It's it's crazy stuff. Yeah. And I feel for now the guys I represent and stuff that it's a different life.
Yeah, it is.
It's a different way. They make a lot more money, and fair play. They should, because of that side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, and I get why many the old American sports or football soccer globally, why these guys, their life is tough, even though everyone's like complaining they're making 50 grand a week, 100 grand a week, whatever. The microscope they are under is so horrific for them personally. It's tough. You can't do stuff that everyone else can do.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? Everyone's looking at them every second.
Yep.
I want to get to some of the comments here. So, Doug's listening on YouTube. So I want to also shout out to anyone listening on YouTube. We stream live on YouTube all the time. But he says, screw the negativity. You have to strive to find your happiness. Be with the people who are important to you and live your life. I like that. But he also takes this, and I got to find this comment to put it up on the screen here because I like what he said because he's trying to relate here. So he says, my kids played rec soccer. My first exposure to it. This is, a while back. I ended up being assistant coach for my son's team. Great experience for me and him. And if we kind of go forward with this, if I can find this, again, this is hard. My old eyes here. My son wanted to learn how to bowl. I taught him how to throw properly and throw the hook. He is now a 200 plus average bowler. Very good. That's pretty good. Very good. Yeah. And
I think I got 200 once.
It's better than me.
He's averaging 200.
Yeah. To his point, though, is soccer wasn't his thing, but bowling is.
It's
Again,
awesome.
It's one of those things. He gave, as a father, to your point, is he knows how to bowl. He's good at bowling, but his son wanted to play soccer, so he went all in. He was assistant coach, didn't know shit about soccer, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to try to help him. And then also my passion was bowling. Again, this isn't a money maker for a lot of people, but again, this is something that he wants to do.
Are you kidding me? Bowling's on like ESPN and that. Like
it is.
Roy Munson's made it big for bowling.
that was a movie.
No, but now
I know that you guys in New Zealand
now it's
don't
on
realize.
ESPN after Munson came out. Like it hit ESPN. Like
you've been
Munson
before, haven't you?
Possibly.
Well, so to some of his comments, passing on your passion doesn't necessarily mean that person's going to follow the same passions as you, but maybe they're going to have the same level of passion about what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
So so you're passionate about soccer, football. If your daughter wants to play golf, but she shows
that would be awesome.
But if she shows the same level of passion about golf as you do soccer, that's still passing along your passion.
Of course, because my beliefs for my sport aren't just about my sport. It's about what you do, if you find your lane and you want to go down that lane, why not go down that lane with your freaking head down, knocking people out along the way to get there? And if it doesn't work out, you can never look back and say, if I'd done this or I'd done that or whatever. Like that's my belief, right?
Yeah.
So I tell her when she goes to school, I'm like, if you're going to be there, learn. What's the point of going if you're not going to learn? I mean, that's me personally.
Yeah.
That's how I was. There's people, look, I'm not going to lie to you. There's people out there that were way better players than me when I played, but they just didn't know how to win, or they didn't know how to do this, or I did. I knew how to. I never wanted to lose anything. At training, I won everything. If I didn't, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Fight. I don't care. I'm not that big. I sit between you two guys. You're bigger than me. I'll take you both on. No problem.
All right. Nice,
Yeah.
still young.
No,
Well,
but that's when
I don't
you
think we ever towed off.
when
did
you
we?
go down that lane, you know what I mean? Like when you're in your lane,
The Beyond the BS is going to be interesting.
You're in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I want my daughters to say, if this is my thing, if I choose this, I want them to choose. I don't
Yeah.
want to choose for them. I hope they like what I like. It'd be great. Or I hope I can lead them to golf because I want to like get better myself at that. But if I can't,
It's more selfish, but-
whatever they, it does sound selfish and it is selfish, but we have to have a little bit of like, you know, I want them to fight for what they want because, I mean, especially having 2 daughters, right?
Mhm.
You know, like they need to learn to, I've got a bag in the garage, you know, I want them to come out and hit it with me.
All right, so I got a
I
couple
mean,
things here.
like-
So the Bourbon Collective says, you know, and thank you for tuning in on YouTube. As a student athlete all the way through college, I can tell you firsthand, it's not the wins, it's not the losses, it's the moments where you see real passion in those teaching that really imprint on you.
It's true.
That's exactly what we're saying.
It's
I
it's
appreciate you listening
100% true.
tonight on YouTube.
That is a comment that strikes big because
Big time.
that moment of passion might lead you to coaching or might lead you to being a referee or might lead you to just telling someone else to go watch games, which grows the game.
Well, you can
That's-
have
that's huge, man.
experiences, right? I mean, it's the same thing. Like I've got look at my lighter.
Bear down.
No, this is Cubs.
Oh, that's
but yeah.
baseball.
Yeah, it's baseball.
my
yeah.
bad.
It's an American sport.
America.
You'll figure it out
America.
eventually. But you know, it's one of those things that
Similar colors, is it?
yeah.
No?
Well, I mean, Cubs is Cub Bear. But anyways, like yeah. So when they won the World Series, this is one of the big things. You know, that was something that was big in my family was baseball, and it wasn't always about you know being a pro player. It wasn't about making the high school team. It was about enjoying the sport and having that identity with that, and having that similarity, that connection with my father, my brother, and I both. You know, this is something that's lighter. When they won the World Series in 2016, I bought 3 of these Zippos, one for me, one for my brother, and one for my dad. My dad passed away a year later. And this is something that I'm sure my brother's is pristine because he doesn't smoke and it's probably sitting in a box. But I also know that my dad, who used to smoke cigarettes, is sitting in a box. That passion that we had for Chicago sports, that my dad had for baseball, that was this connection that we had. And with all of that, my dad did the same thing. He was the little league coach. You know, for better or worse, I've got good stories, I got bad stories. And it's one of those things that it was, you know, all those factors involved, but it was something that there was this common ground that even after he has passed, even my mom, my brother, and I can still talk, text, everything about the Cubs. There is this passion. It's this
Every
it's
Monday.
Great, it's this great equalizer that you can have with that I think is super important. Whether it's something as trivial as sports, not to say that your career was trivial, but it's something that
We all knew he'd get that in there somewhere. I don't know how long you've all been listening, but we all knew.
no, but I'm saying like you never know how you're going to impact people and what impacts people and what brings people together, whether it be families or friends or just in general. It's the hobbies, lifestyles, everything. That this whole thing is that when it's based around passion and interest, and if you do everything you're talking about of giving your all and learning from it, I think that there is so many springboards to other aspects of life that you can absolutely enjoy and be better at.
And when you, okay, so yeah, I'm older. If my daughter loves whatever, she loves freaking dance, I'm going to need to learn more about that. I'm going to need to know what's going on. Gymnastics.
All right. So
Whatever it
step
is,
up,
I'm gonna-
step up to the streets and step up 8. There's a whole series, I think, out there.
I think I need to
If you
get on
want to
that.
reach out to Channing Tatum, I
If
think
she-
you
I have my limits.
No, not Magic Mike.
No, that's another one. Magic Mike. Yeah.
You know, I do have my limits.
Do you though?
I
Do you
do.
though?
I do realize there's social media now.
You have evolved since we hung out mostly.
Mostly.
I do want to put up a good comment from Ray. If I can see the screen.
Ray, you're on fire.
Yeah. So, no, that's not it. When does passion become an obsession? Because I think that is a valid question.
It's a very valid question.
When do you put the blinders on?
You know what? I think for me personally, and this isn't answering for everyone, with passion, you have your hate as well. There's days, there's weeks, there's months. I hate what I love. but that makes me realize that it is my passion. I think we grow with our passion, and we grow, as human beings, as people. I've grown into realizing that my passion might not be everyone else's passion. And I have to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not my wife's passion, if it's not my daughter's passion, my other daughter's passion, so be it. I've got to grow into their passion too. So, I think you have to be acceptable of other passions. When it becomes an obsession, it can be dangerous, I think. I don't think I've ever got to that point personally, so it's hard for me to answer. I'm not saying that I don't love soccer and I'll always love soccer, but I've also hated soccer for periods of time. When I was injured, when I never thought I'd play again, when I post-playing, there's been periods of time when I really disliked it. Does that mean it's obsessive? Possibly. But I don't think I've got to that point where that's it for me, because I have other things in my life. So passion, I think, should be I don't know how to put this. Multifaceted passions. I mean, my family is obviously my pillar, my number one passion. I hope they love the other thing that I'm passionate about. But I think it's if you put all your eggs in one basket, that's always tough. That's always the recipe for danger.
I think you need to know your limits, right? So, I think when passion becomes obsession, there is a fine line that you walk. And I think at a certain stage of your life, depending on what the outside factors are, who's involved in your life, right? If you're single and you're able to close off and really dedicate just to that passion, you will miss out on a lot, right? Because you're not open up to anything else. That passion has now become obsession. I have no objection to that to a point. When there are other people or things that are important to you and you start closing that off or closing people off, and you sacrifice certain things, yes, at a certain point, if you have these other kind of variables, if you will, in your life that may be toxic, that are pulling you out of your passion, now all of a sudden you might steer away from your passion, and that's bad. If you do it the other way and you just go the obsession route and you rule out or you close off, put those blinders on to other things that are important, that are actually in the bigger scheme of life, you never know what's going to transpire based on your actions, right? But it would be regretful a lot of times when something is very important to you and you close them off just for this, and the only outcome is financial success or self gratification in a short-term way, when you realize that you could have had both and you may not have excelled maybe as far, but you have these things running parallel, that you have success in the multifaceted way, right? That you have many things working. But if you are just blinders on, this is what I want to do at all costs, chances are, whether you succeed or not, that all costs part of it will be a prevailing theme, and you will lose everything else around you. And I think that's something that obsession factor of it, for a short period of time, or when you are really dedicated and other things around you aren't as sure and you're not sure about those things, that can actually center you and get you driven. But if things around you are good and you then turtle up and you just zero in on just that, you will sacrifice a lot of things around you, family, people, other aspects, your health, whatever it might be.
It kind of reminds me of some of the closing remarks I had last week when I talked. The topic was, is there really too much of a good thing? And in my closing remarks, I talked about how, like, if whatever that thing is, so like when we're talking about passion tonight, whatever that passion is, if that costs you some of those primary things that you want in your life, like, then it becomes a problem. Like, if you're sacrificing the primary things in life for the secondary or even tertiary things, like then there's a problem where then you need to reevaluate what it is you're spending your time and energy on. Because you can go full bore on a passion or a hobby, and if it costs you some of the things that are the most important to you, is it really worth it? Like, what was it worth going, being that excited and like getting to whatever level of that there was that success or whatever? Was it really worth all the things that it cost you?
So when you go down the road of, I guess, obsession, if you don't keep your eyes open to everything else,
that's what Steve's talking about, like with the
blinders.
The horse blinders,
like, you know what I mean? Like then
like there are some.
I guess it's the interpretation of the word obsession. Right?
Did you sacrifice stuff? Like, I'm sure you did, but growing up in New Zealand and getting to the pro level, and you had to move to the States.
Of course. I mean,
was it obsession or?
Yeah, I mean, my time with my family, my mom, my dad, and my brother, 100%. I've sacrificed a lot, but it wasn't an obsession. It was supported by them.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like it's
not an us versus them type of a thing.
it's I kept my eyes open, and if it had been an absolute no-go from their side, it would have been a reevaluation, right? Like I think.
Would you have battled that, you think?
Sure.
I have this opportunity. They don't want me to do it.
I had, no, of course. Ask the question. I love it. Like, look, that happened. My parents were amazing. They were so supportive of what I wanted to do. If I could be half the parents to my kids that they were to me, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. I think it depends what people take as an obsession.
Yeah.
Am I obsessed with soccer? Am I passionate about it? Fuck.
Still?
It depends.
Still,
of course. I mean, it's a big part of my life, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
puts food on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it?
I mean,
you get a paycheck.
Yeah,
so,
no, exactly.
Puts food on the table.
Look,
but being a scout,
man, it's really hard to explain this, I think, from my personal, where I sit. Obsession to me is, I guess, the blinders out, everything. You can be really passionate, obsessed about something, but if you still are open to other things around you and stuff, does that mean it's obsessive, or is that passion? It's like I can be obsessive about like soccer. I can, on Saturday when I was playing, I would kill anyone to win. Didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Fight anyone. I don't care how big, ugly, whatever you were. I'll do anything to win.
Okay.
On Monday, on Sunday, I'm the nicest guy in the world. The same guy that I had a bust up with in the game, we would have a drink together, whatever. I had bust up with training with one of my best friends in the world. Like, because stuff happened, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that obsessive? Is that passion? Is that?
I think you have to define that.
I just, it's hard for me to define like the obsessive thing, because I'm not an addictive and obsessive person personally. Like, I think obsessive, addictive are two very similar things, right?
I think obsession.
I don't have an addictive personality.
I do.
You do?
I have an addictive personality.
Would you like crack?
Because I can give you a free sample.
Oh, I mean butt crack.
Oh, you can give a free sample. No, I think addictive and obsessive.
What just happened?
You brought me on the podcast.
Curveball.
I mean,
no, he did.
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
I know.
I can mess with them.
Absolutely.
Nice.
2.5 hours into it, you can mess with them finally.
Nice.
Jesus. No, I think obsession can't, most of the time, will have a negative connotation.
Very dangerous.
It is. So I think that is.
Usually ends in jail time.
It does. Going back to the addiction.
No, but obsession ends in trouble.
It can. again, I think obsession is to the root of it, and I'm not going to pull up Webster's here, but I think that to the root of it is at all costs.
Trouble.
That is trouble. But I think that is something that you can actually, with the if you are reassessing constantly, and it's like, well, I have a passion for it, but I love what you said, Duncan, about, you with your family support. You were fortunate enough that it never had to turn to this obsession at all costs. It was, I am going to take risks. I am passionate about this. I live and breathe this, and I'm gonna see this out. I'm gonna play this out. I'm gonna see where this goes.
Does your support group, staff, whatever you call them, do they accept your passion?
Well, and I think that's something that the definition of passion versus the obsession part of it is defined a lot of times from people around you,
For sure,
and not just you. Now, if you're listening to people around you, then you might actually start defining it for yourself. But when you're in the on the podcast, Duncan, I've said this since the very beginning, is that when you're dealing with issues, it's that hand in front of your face. When you are just that close, you can't focus on anything. But when you're in the thick of it, you are just doing it. You're doing it and doing it and doing it. But if you have people around you that pull that hand out, now you can focus on the hand and you can focus on everything around it, right? So you have a wider perspective. And I think this is one of those things that you can succeed if you are passionate / obsessed with succeeding with this path,
but you're open.
But there's no blinders on.
Yeah.
100%.
So now take the blinders off. You can be obsessed with it.
Couldn't agree more.
And you can fail, or you can have some success for a certain amount of time with the support of people that are important to you. But if they are the ones, and again, there's so many variables here. Like, you can have these toxic people around you that you'll never do well. You'll never do, like, that's not necessarily, I don't want to
Steve, everyone has them.
Everyone does.
Everyone does. I don't care
so
who
you
are.
Like, having
everyone
your blinders off, though,
everyone.
You have to be able to decipher that. And you have to be able to decipher is, what are they saying to me? Is it going to be something that is beneficial, or is it constantly negative? And even if I backed out of this passion or obsession, would they still be negative?
So you keep bringing up blinders.
Yeah.
Right? So blinders are a horse thing. Do you know why some horses have to wear blinders in a race and some don't? So they don't get distracted. Because if there's a horse that easily gets distracted and he doesn't have the blinders on, and he sees a horse next to him that starts, say, trailing off or pulling ahead, that horse might follow that same thing, even though that's not how that horse runs a race. You have some horses that break late, some break early and just stay out, but they have blinders on, so that way they're trained to just do what they've been trained to do and how their body normally runs that race.
How does it relate to life? To you?
Well, the aspect of blinders, or
what you just said.
I think some of us, we may be going, we're all running a race in life. And I think some of us get too easily distracted when we see someone else off in the distance pulling ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, oh, that person's doing better than me. I need to start doing what they're doing. But then you realize, like, wait a minute, I just burned all my energy and I still have another half mile to go in this race. And I just don't have it in me to be able to finish it. And all of a sudden, like, your performance starts slacking there at the end. And like, you weren't running the race the way you run a race. You were trying to run someone else's race.
You are keeping up with the Joneses, and you are living your life based on other people's standards.
Yeah. Instead of living, within
what you
your
want
own.
to do.
Yeah. And, and Duncan, you talked about how important it is having that support. So I've told this story before, but you've probably not heard it. So obviously, people that know me know cigars is something I'm passionate about. And
couldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
Never smoked before in his life. First time.
So years ago,
Never drank bourbon either.
So years ago, I had the opportunity. I actually interviewed for a cigar rep position, kind of like what Tyler Jones in the Garage does. And I was really excited about that opportunity because I was passionate about the industry.
Yeah.
And as I'm driving up to Chicago for that interview, I get a phone call from my dad, and I tell him what I'm doing. And he goes, well, I hope it goes well, but not too well. Like, he didn't want me to get the job because he didn't think it was going to be something I would actually enjoy. But then I got that job. And then when he actually saw me,
was that kind of like a middle finger to dad?
No,
The
no.
way you said that, the way it came out then. I mean, because we all do look back and give the middle finger.
It wasn't
certain people. I'm not going to lie.
No. It wasn't a middle finger. What really changed was the first event I did that was back in Columbus. My dad came to that event, and my dad saw how passionate I was about the job.
Yeah.
That's what changed his mind. He saw I was passionate about this and wanted to succeed, and how much joy it brought me. And so that's what changed his mind. Is he's like, I didn't realize like this is something that you were that passionate about, but I see that passion and you really enjoy what you're doing. And he wanted me to be successful because he saw, the joy that it brought me. On the same side, my wife wanted me to be successful, and she knew I had a passion for it as well. But at the same time, she had a window in her mind to where if by a certain time period, like after so long, if I still didn't have that passion, or it was creating a sacrifice and a hindrance in our relationship, then she was going to have a talk with me about making a change because other things are suffering.
That's the blinders. That's the obsession, right?
Yeah.
Sacrifice is a good word to bring into the obsession when you have vested others within your life. You know what I mean? Like if you talk about passion is you can have that individually within the thing. Obsession, I think, needs to be, if you don't have your peripherals on, if you don't like see everyone around you, what they're thinking about it, that becomes dangerous. And if you have like someone like your wife in that situation to say, hey, like if the sacrifice is too big for everything else in your life, it's an obsession. So in your life, in your personal life, this is the guidelines between passion and obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had guidelines.
Well, and that's,
you know what I mean? Which is great. And you either say, fuck the guidelines, I'm obsessed, but that's life. And that's why, again, with the taste, the flavor, when you drink, when you do whatever, everyone has different like palates.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has different like life paths, stories, support groups, whatever. An obsession for some, and they'll say I was obsessed with this, that's why I made it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why you made it, or were you really good at it?
I think obsession can be negative. It can also be a jargon word.
It's, you know what? You probably had really good people helping you get there and supporting you and do this or not do this or whatever. I think everyone has different guidelines within their passion realms / obsession.
Yeah. And
I think we have to acknowledge that as individuals in our own lives. To me, obsession becomes dangerous. If you go obsessed to anything outside of the realms of your guidelines, and you say, I'm obsessed with this, I'm going down this road, because obsession does often lead to trouble.
I think it's true obsession is at all costs.
At all costs.
Which
means sacrificing your blinders, the people that care about you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not good.
Yeah, and Ray did follow up with obsession is more the forfeiting of everything else to get what you want.
Yeah. which isn't
Absolutely.
which
And he
isn't
also
great.
said, I don't think that making sacrifices for what you love is necessarily obsession. Again, a very fine line here with that.
No, you do have to make sacrifices, but at the cost of what?
Right.
Do the rewards outweigh the sacrifices?
That's right.
For sure. It's a
And we all, I mean, any big decision we make as individuals, that's something that we have to evaluate.
for sure.
If I make this career change, how's that going to affect me? How's it going to affect my family? Like, okay, this may set us back initially, but what's the growth potential? Like, can we get better off and get ahead versus where if I'd have just stayed doing what I was doing?
Yep.
Like you have to have that conversation. And I think one of the key factors when having that conversation, it cannot be just a conversation with yourself. When we've had Josh Bentley on a bunch of times, he always talks about that board of directors. So he has a group of people.
Real business.
He has a group of people.
Well, in life too, though.
Yeah.
You talk
Yeah.
about that.
So
you
he-
know, like
of
what
course.
the aspects of
he
life that are
he has a
important.
group of people that are close to him that they're not necessarily people that are in his industry. They're just people that he knows that have been successful in different aspects of their lives. When he has a major life decision, he runs it by those other people.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
it's not people that are in the same industry. It's just people who have other life experiences.
And that's taking your blinders
And
off.
because they have
Yeah.
a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's being open.
Exactly.
Like,
You can
yeah.
you can be passionate about
Open.
something, but you have to be open to
Yeah.
people that you factor
So it
in your
doesn't
life as
turn
being
to-
important.
So it's
Obsession.
obsession.
All right,
Yeah.
so I think we're at the point of part two here. Is I want to do some closing remarks. I don't know if anyone in the audience here in the garage want to say anything. No, cool. Yeah, how's Tetris going? Yeah, that's typically how it goes.
Wow. I thought you guys had more than that.
Sometimes they do.
I mean, can I make
usually
that
do.
comment?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do anything. There's no rules. I mean, this is just go fuck yourself.
See ya. Wait. See ya.
See ya.
Peace.
All right, Nate, I'm gonna start with you tonight. Closing remarks, and then we'll go to Duncan, then myself, and then Sean. Feel free to interrupt any of us. You got it, buddy.
So talking about passing along a passion, I think you touched on it, Duncan, when you were talking about your daughter picking up sports and stuff like that. Like, show others your passion, but don't force it to be their passion. Just hopefully the passion that you have for something, just the passion itself is contagious. So the two of you may be passionate about different things, but the passion alone by itself is what's important to pass along. The object that they're passionate about can be very different. It's actually having that drive, that energy, that focus that is more important rather than what they're focused on. And then also be passionate about their passion. Like whatever they're passionate about, like even if it's something that you're not passionate about, like that's what they want to do, as long as it's not, something stupid like jumping off a bridge without a parachute. Like let them do that. Let them try it. Be supportive.
One time.
You get to do that one time.
Without a parachute, only one time.
One time. Got your back. I love you.
So
Miss
long.
you. Yeah.
But
Good luck.
break a leg? No.
Yeah.
So long.
But
Tuck.
also let them know,
Yeah, buddy.
like let them know as well, like, okay, if this is what you're passionate about, even though I may not share that same passion, like I'll be your safety net. And that doesn't mean you bail them out of trouble. It means if they fall, you're there to pick them up.
Yeah.
You're there to help them. You're there to catch them if they fall. So that way, they're able to pick themselves back up and try again, or realize maybe this wasn't the right thing to do. I got to find something else.
Duncan.
Wow. I have so much.
All right.
First off, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Honestly, like this has been awesome.
Gosh, something up there. I need to cheers to something. Here.
I
Well, there's only one bottle left up there.
All right.
I really do hope I come back. If I get enough votes, there's enough support and passion for me.
Have you
Bring
seen,
me back.
Have you seen American Idol? They're texting in right now, and it's been quiet.
It's been really bad.
Real quiet.
No, yeah, exactly. Thank you. No, honestly, like for
Text
me,
into
the big thing about passion, obsession, whatever. Listen to the people you trust. It's when they will help guide you and understand the people you trust to know and be open to everything, because at the end of the day, like what you're passionate about, people might call it obsession. They don't understand it because they're not passionate about it. You know, so you have to listen to everything, but you don't necessarily have to hear it all. And I'm really freaking happy you guys invited me on. Honestly, like this is awesome.
Thank you.
It's a really good
I'm
time.
glad.
I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone goes and just if you're still watching,
They are.
just go have one.
One of the
Just go try one
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
If you haven't tried one, try one more, because it's actually good.
Yeah.
It's
What do you
good.
think of the second cigar?
It's an easier smoke.
Yeah.
It's probably
Lighter.
It's a smoother, lighter smoke. It's not. If you want something a little different, I would say spend 15% discount at the Tinderbox.
Bingo. For a week.
Spend it. You know, give that a crack. Just give it a crack. I would, but no, I do think be passionate about what you're passionate about, and pass it on. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but tell as many people as you can.
Yeah.
And do it in a nice way, because sometimes obsession in something turns people off when you're passing it on as well.
Yeah.
Which is true and scary. You know,
Yeah, it
people
can be.
turn off to obsession
Because it's forced.
It's forced.
Yeah.
Don't
No
force
one
it.
likes
And
that.
that, you know, I don't want to get into the topic of religion, but that's something
That's
that does.
next episode that Duncan's on. We'll talk
That-
about religion and politics.
Let's not
Tune in,
let's not do
we'll
that.
get 'em to-
Let's not do that ever. But that affects many people.
Absolutely right. I'll
And
Castro Fry, smoking Cuban cigars and communism. No,
I'll be there.
I'll speak from personal experience, and you know, one of the things I'll say this, you know, with Duncan, there's two sides of it. I wish I would have known you when you were playing at a professional level. If I would have met you 5-10 years earlier. But I'm also very grateful to know you when I did and know you now, because that is the perspective aspect of it, is that you might have had your bouts with obsession and passion, but, you know, meeting you when I met you, it's one of those friendships now that I really cherish, because I've had friends in my life that once you stop having that constant connection with, you had those moments of like the passionate friendship that you just were hanging out all the time. All the hobbies were the same. Life lined up perfectly. And I've had other friendships that years can go by, and when you absolutely reconnect and you actually sit down and have a phone conversation, you sit down over a cigar, you meet up for a dinner or whatever, and you catch up. It is truly one of those, I know it's a saying, and I'm sure many of you have had this type of of relationship where no time has passed. And once you catch up with the, you know, kids,
100%,
the moves, the jobs, and it's like, you're still the same person. You're not the same person, but at the core, you have lived your life accordingly. That
our
you have been
relationship
true.
is the same.
That's it. But when I
Feeling,
knew you weren't married originally, right? You weren't married. You didn't have
Yep.
kids. You were working for the crew, but you weren't playing for the crew. You weren't doing what you're doing now. And that's a different aspect for me, is that when you're passing along the passion, when I talk to you, and I brought it up earlier, is when we spoke on the phone, probably the longest conversation we've had in probably 3 years easily. It was as if no time had passed, and yet I'm hearing these new experiences that are absolutely framed by the same passion of life, that your priorities are the same, but your day-to-day activities couldn't have been more different.
I just honestly, if I'm allowed to jump in right now, which
That's
I'm going
what
to,
happens. Like Sean was saying, that's what happens in my closing remarks.
which I'm going to.
Yeah.
I honestly, mate, I could not stop thinking about the Christmas party when you jumped on the bull, and I jumped on the bull and all that. I was like,
we weren't
dude,
together on the
I was gonna say,
just
at the same
to
time?
be clear.
at different times, and
Same bull.
I was like, but to me that was like, man, I love this dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It wasn't about the conversation or that. It was like, nothing's changed. He's like my boy.
There's an energy about you if you live your life with passion, if you're passing along the passion, and it could be something that, Sean was talking about. I really appreciate you sharing that, Sean, where you had that person that looked up to you, that even at that time, and I'm not saying just necessarily your example, but there are times that people may not express that they are looking up to you, but you give it enough time, and if you're living your life with passion, you're passing it along, that you are trying to, intentional or not, you're trying to pass along all of this lifestyle or mindset goals of how you live your life, how you do your job, how you treat people around you, how you live in a significant other relationship. The way you live your life, that passion will pass along through your actions, and it may not be immediate. And that's the parallel there, is that with your example, is that you talk to that person later on and they tell you, I didn't realize it at the time, but as new experiences came my way, I realize now what you were trying to tell me, how you were treating me. And I appreciate, at the time, I didn't. It could be as far as like, I didn't like you at the time.
I thought you were an a-hole.
Yes, I thought you were. Yes, I did. As in my last career, I had that a lot, where it's like, but I had people come up to me later and they messaged me. They're like, I know why you were doing that, and I appreciate what you did. Same thing with a longtime friend, is that same thing. It's like, we don't have to talk every day. We don't have to hang out all the time, but it's like when you actually have that true identity with that passion of life, you can have every success out there available to you if you can reconnect with that person, and you start talking about, well, I went through this, I went through that, and it's like, all right, so, and you have that conversation, you're open, you take the blinders off, you absolutely have that conversation you could have had and would have had and probably did have 5-10 years ago, that this type of pureness is still there. Because if you live your life that way with that passion, and you're passing it along just by living, you will have more impact on people. And if those people are evolving to be the same way, or if they're the same person, but just life gets in the way and you're taking different paths, once you reconnect, there's a lot of electricity, a lot of excitement that you have been missing, that you didn't realize you were missing, because life is just happening. So I would say, make sure that you touch base with the people that were important to you. And if you ever have that moment where, like, I should reach out to that person,
Do it.
take the next step. Don't wait. Don't do that, because do it. Because that person might be in the same boat or even further beyond. They might be in quicksand right now. But also, if you're having that thought, and that person had that passion, and that was a good moment. You were talking about just having fun, that bar crawl. It's so trivial to so many people, but when you reconnect with that person, there will be a reignition of that type of mindset, the bond, the support, the passion that will now relate to new aspects that have come years later.
For sure, mate. I mean, I can't tell you, like, the bond that was created through those times.
A lot of hearts.
A lot.
Yeah.
A
I don't
lot
drink Oughton 8s anymore, by the way, because they called it Oughton 8.
Wow. Can I change my recap? Can I get a second recap? Do you get a rebuttal on your
No, we're running out of time.
Damn it.
We don't have a time limit.
Yeah, no, the bandwidth or the internet's
dying suddenly.
I think my laptop's dying.
The internet's running out of passion.
My MacBook is running out of passion right now.
It's plugged in.
But no, I do think that this is it's a good way to look at life, is that you really need
a good topic, mate.
Yeah.
In general, for everyone out there, especially what America and the world has been through and is going through with Ukraine and everything right now, it's just a really good topic.
Yeah.
It's, because it doesn't have to be one thing. It doesn't have to be, it can be family, it can be broader, it can be community, it can be a lot of things. And I think it's, passion is very important for everyone. And I think we all need to find it. We all need to have it.
And don't lose it. In
our country, in ourselves, in our, it can be micro or macro. It just needs to be there in everyone. And there's so much reason to live.
Absolutely.
Life is fucking awesome when you're sitting next to great people
or us.
Or you guys. Yeah, valid, very valid point,
Speak for yourself,
Steve.
there, Steve. Jesus.
I mean, it's just find.
You're part of the show too.
Find it.
Absolutely.
Find it.
Yeah, and follow it.
Yeah, get it,
guys.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, that's old school. That's old school, baby. Cheers, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Wait, it's Wednesday?
Yeah, it's only Wednesday.
Damn,
You gotta work
Tuesday.
tomorrow. Cheers, guys.